Welcome to this omnibus edition of Happy Times and Places, a positively inclined Doctor Who episode commentary podcast in which I, Toby Haydock, ask a friend to choose a Doctor Who story. I'll then watch and commentate along, dropping in facts and observations, and try to guess what my special guest's favourite thing about the episode might be.
Hi, my name's Joe Lewallen. I am a Doctor Who fan from rural Northern California, and we're going to talk about Time of Angels, Flesh and Stone. These two episodes are the fourth and the fifth episodes of Doctor Who I had ever seen. I saw these before Blink and before Silence in the Library, Forest of the Dead, and it's just still remains one of my favorite Doctor Who stories ever. Since I've gone back, I've seen most of the classic series. I'm trying to get through all of them. And I just really thank Toby for this opportunity to talk about this story. See a little bit about me. No blog, no podcast, nothing like that. Just like Doctor Who. I work in social services. I've been doing that for about 23 years. I've also been in the California Army National Guard for almost 35. So I've already filmed all my favorite things, and this is the last bit I'm trying to get done, kind of in timey-wimey fashion, which is appropriate for this story. All right, let's go.
Oh, what a lovely intro for those without pictures, which is all of you. Joe did record that as a video, and he had a lovely snowscape behind him. I'm really excited about this. Joe, unlike the usual contributor to Happy Times and Places, is someone I have never met, and indeed somebody of whom I had no knowledge until I started doing these podcasts. And he was somebody that popped over to Patreon and started sending messages, which is something you can do through the system. And we've gone back and forth, and it's really fascinating because he and I have, almost nothing in common in terms of background, and indeed, when we came to the show, as you heard, this was the fourth episode of Doctor Who Joe watched. He's watched pretty much everything now, and in fact, he's watched some classic Who as a result of, or to prepare for, the Happy Times and Places. So I've kind of dictated his schedule, if you like. Well, no, because he didn't have to, but he's chosen to, and it's been lovely sort of hearing him go, I've been saving this one, I've never seen it before, and I love it because of this, that, and the other. And we email about other things, and it's fabulous that somebody who, as I say, my life experiences are totally different to Joe's, and obviously we're from different countries and of different backgrounds and all sorts of other things, and we are united by one thing and one thing alone. And is that maybe we both have the TARDIS as to indicate a text message? Sorry, I'm just covering the fact I've got a text message on my phone. I don't know if you heard that. If you did, it wasn't the Doctor landing in my living room. It's what my text message noise is, because I'm pathetic. And I need to advertise the fact that I'm a Doctor Who fan, in case anyone isn't sure. And yeah, that Joe and I are united simply by the fact that we both really like Doctor Who, and I really like hearing Joe's feedback from Joe's perspective, and we chat occasionally on email and on Patreon and all sorts of other things. So I thought, why not get him to contribute to this, because he's got a lot of really interesting things to say, and he's also chose some new Who, and I remember when this was new Who. I remember this was when this was freshly minted Who. Sorry, there was a brief hiatus there, which you won't have noticed unless there's a slight edit. I had a malfunctioning fan. No, in the utility room. No, it wasn't somebody in a tank top with NHS specs tied up going, I think we'll find Polly's surname was right because there's a document. Not that kind of fan malfunctioning. It was making lots of awful noise. So anyway, I gave it a bit of a dust, and hopefully it will not send the screeching EBGBs through the sound system and into your ears at home, and we can get on with watching this episode of Doctor Who, which did have a rude interruption, actually, on the time of broadcast, which I'm sure I will vent about at length come the episode's conclusion. But it's all a love-in at the moment, as Joe Lewallen, whom I have never met, but I'm an admirer of, and certainly a willing correspondent with, is going to take us through the Time of Angels. I remember when this was new. This was very early in Joe's Doctor Who journey, quite late in mine. It's only the 4th episode in Matt Smith's and Stephen Moffat's tenure at the top of the show. So, but filmed prior to, I think, The Beast Below and Victory of the Daleks, wasn't it? Was it filmed? It was filmed prior to pretty much everything, I think. So, let's see how we go with the Time of Angels in 3, 2, 1. Now, this is Mike Skinner from the Streets. I did not know that at the time. I had a joke in Moths Ate My Doctor Who scarf about saying it was something like saying the memory cheats to a Doctor Who fan is a bit like going up to a fan of the Streets saying, how can that be music? He's just talking, which used to get a huge laugh. And I took it out eventually because the Streets didn't seem to be what he once was. But I actually very much liked the music and lyrics of the Streets. They were I think he's Mike Skinner from, but is he the Streets himself? I don't know how rap works. If it is rap, I'm sure it's its own subgenre. Anyway, he was a famous music fellow, and in fact, when I was struggling to get people to complete the entire run of Doctor Who for Happy Times and Places, I did go on Twitter and Facebook and go, does anybody know the bloke from the Streets? Because I thought he might be the easiest person to get. In fact, I ended up getting Stephen Moffat. But that's a very sort of, it's with he's I don't think I got that the first time round. He's the security guard who has been kissed by River Song, and of course he's not really in a field, and that's, as we'll see with Simon Dutton when they come and apprehend River Song where she is in the airlock. But it's got a fun cameo, and I think Mike Skinner had tweeted, I'm going to be in Doctor Who or something, or tweeted something about Doctor Who, and then had to take it down. And probably what seemed like a fun little cameo job to him suddenly seemed like a maximum security thing. He's going, oh, sorry, I only asked. But anyway, this is a very Stephen Moffat beginning. A mystery, an enigma, bit of sass, a gag, and I remember watching the 11th Hour in a pub organised by Jeremy Bentham, an event. Jeremy Bentham, the Doctor Who fan of yore, venerable elder statesman of Doctor Who fandom, had organised. He organised season premieres quite a lot when I was in London, and it was a great joy to me to feel like I was part of something, to be invited to those and to watch with a load of like-minded people the season premiere of Doctor Who in a pub in London where I was enjoying living. And when a clip of River Song appeared at the end of the 11th Hour, she's great, isn't she? There was a big cheer in the pub, and it had surprised me because I hadn't realised how much people were looking forward to her coming back. I had thought, I will take this with me to the grave. It's quite a nice part for Simon Dutton, but he's gone before the opening titles. But he was the Saint. Do you remember when they revived the Saint some years ago now, and he was the kind of lead. And so, brilliant casting for the sort of smooth talking tuxed guy here, and it's a nice part, seeing as it's only a couple of scenes. But I always wonder what actors like him do, who you don't see for ages, and then come and do nice bits in things. I imagine he probably, I don't know, does he run a hotel in France or something and then just deigns to act every now and again? That's or maybe he's really a spy. Yeah, I like that idea. He actually dresses like this in real life, being an international man of mystery, then occasionally comes and acts. That's the glamorous lifestyle I want to ascribe to. So I'll probably find, if I look him up on IMDb now, he's been consistently working, just not in things that I've seen. And that can happen, where you suddenly go, where's that guy come from? And you look at him and go, oh, they've got 200 credits. They've just not been in the things I've been watching. But he's perfectly cast in this. I mean, I worry because this is funny, obviously, and it's a gag, and it shows her confidence that she's going to be picked up by the doctor and all of that sort of thing. But I do worry on the other side of it that there's 3 men there in an airlock who might get sucked out into space and killed. But that's because maybe I need to develop a sense of humour. I don't know. But I love this. I love this music. I love this Murray Gold theme for this Doctor. Oh yes, and of course because the ship crashes as well, so they do die. Those people do die. But so even if they did, as I've just thought, they shut the airlock and they were fine. They die soon anyway. So yeah, I remember when this was new. I watched this. Having watched the 11th Hour in a pub with loads of Doctor Who fans, I watched this in a Travelodge in Preston because I was doing the late lamented Frog and Bucket Comedy Club in Preston, and it was not busy either. But I trooped down to it after the episode and took my ire out on the scant crowd. Anyway, here we go. So, because Adam Smith is he directs these two, doesn't he, in the 11th Hour, and then we never see him again. In fact, we also don't see Andrew Gunn, do we? The director of Victory of the Daleks and The Beast Below, which had been a kind of both, I think, the morning after the night before, hadn't they, of the 11th Hour, which is, I think, possibly the best launch that any Doctor's ever had. It's a terrific. I mean, but I love Power of the Daleks, but it's a really strong episode. It's a really strong start to an era. That was the dust from the fan, by the way. It was a really strong start to an era, seeing as we were a blank slate, and we had a whole new team having to establish themselves, and it's a brilliant establisher of the show. And then Beast Below, which I'll be interested to do one day, which I remember people at the time saying it had been the best script any of them had ever read, but it didn't quite translate into that on screen. And Victory of the Daleks is a strange beast. It goes from being a sort of Power of the Daleks pastiche with Winston Churchill in it to a launch of a new range of toys in a tobacco factory. And they'd sort of shown that there were chinks in Moffat's armour in a way, because he'd been so... I mean, each of his stories were, very... regarded as the best or close to the best of each of the seasons they were in, and I was certainly a very strongly looking forward to him taking over, because I loved all of his episodes that he did under Russell T Davies. But I remember, and this is what I will take to my grave, I do like this TARDIS as well, but and I like the colour palette that this whole series has. I will take to my grave with me the fact that Rachel, who is a regular punter at my comedy club, XS Malarkey, who is a lovely person, who is not a Doctor Who fan, wrote to me and said, so who is this River song? After Silence in the Library, River's Forest of the Dead, and said, who is this River song? And, when will we see her again? And blah-de-blah. And I went, no. She was particular to that story. The whole thing about that story is that it's a heartbreaking story that has been told off stage. We met her for the first time, and she dies when we meet her. And the tragedy of the Doctor is that he's got this story that he will live with her, and we've come in on the end. And it's a clever thing of time, of going, the first time they meet is the last time they meet. And it's a very Stephen Moffat idea, and it's there in that wonderful two-parter as a sort of emotional core to a very spooky story about a haunted library of flesh-eating dust monsters. And I couldn't have been, and she was like, no, but surely because they've set this up now. I was like, no, the whole thing is told in that story. And of course, I was completely wrong, and I don't know what I'm talking about. And I will give my Doctor Who card back on the admission of that. And I remember there were some photos of this flying around, weren't they? These were the early looks we got of the Matt Smith Doctor, and I have to say, I remember there were rumours that he wasn't up to it. I remember being told by somebody that the word is he's not very good. Well, obviously that word was not true, because you can't have watched any of his performances in his early shows and not think he's absolutely amazing. So that was just gossip and slander. But I think there was trouble with this. We'll talk about one of the soldiers later, because something happened there. But anyway, here we are. Here's I like all the doctory bantery stuff. I like Moffat's clever dialogue. I like the relationship between River and the Doctor. But it's a bit like Romana and the Doctor. We don't mind the Doctor being cut down to size. The Doctor's actually a bit boring if he's an all-conquering hero. I quite like that the Doctor is the one that got 49% in his exams. I like the fact that River Song can cut him down to size a little bit, but in the final acknowledgement, she knows he's amazing and the best thing ever and the real hero of the story. So, but it makes for a bantery dynamic. I mean, I understand people who think that maybe Moffat's Doctor is all bantery stuff, but if you can write witty dialogue, do it. Karen Gillan is great, isn't she? She's she's absolutely stunning. They're a great. I'm thinking about Ncuti Gatwa and Millie Gibson now, and how those publicity photographs are really selling the show. And I think Matt Smith and Karen Gillan have a similar, slightly more idiosyncratic, maybe, but they make for great pictures. I love Ian Glenn's performance in this. I think he's absolutely terrific. I made the mistake. I remember when I interviewed Moffat about this, I suspect he would have been much happier. Very kind of him, Stephen, to give me his time for my stupid podcast. But I talked to him about Time of Angels, and I talked to him about Ian Glenn, and he's like, yeah, great, but that's you have to choose your questions really, and Stephen Moffat is storytelling, plot twists, timey-wimey, the humour, blah, 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 blah. He's not disinterested in the actors, and obviously he has an eye for casting. He cast Matt Smith, he cast Karen Gillan, he cast Arthur Darvill, but he's not in it. That's what I'm in it for. I'm in it for the character actors. He's in it for other stuff. And I think I showed my naivety as an interviewer there, asking a question about a guest star that I rather liked, who, Stephen's just like, yeah, he's great. He was really nice and he was great. Rather than about that character or about this or about... So anyway, it's just... I will occasionally just offload one of my shortcomings. This is kind of therapy. This is a fantastic... It's not a set, is it? It's nature, but it's a fantastic setting. That shot of the spaceship and the crashed spaceship, is a brilliant desolate start. And I love this idea of warrior monks, which of course goes back. There's a historical and legendary precedent for warrior monks, even though to us now it may seem slightly oxymoronic and paradoxical or whatever, but crusaders were fighting for religion. So the idea is just, it's interesting to see them in fatigues and with machine guns. But I like that. I think that's a smart use of invoking something that has a kind of familiarity and putting a modern twist on it. I think that really, really works. I'm Mr. Grumpy Face today. I suspect there is tons that I'm missing here in the witty banter and the dialogue, which Joe will doubtless choose all lines, and I'll go, oh, I was probably talking through that. I was probably apologising for something or banging on about something pointless. I remember this so well. I remember talking to somebody when this was just coming up, saying, who I think had been privy to the script for this episode, maybe, who said it's got so many good ideas, and there's one sequence in it, and it's going to be this sequence with the, and with the angel in the eye, that could make a whole story, but that he does it as a set piece and then starts moving on and doing other things. In fact, that he's got so many good ideas in his head that sometimes you think, well, another writer might have just done one of those ideas and done the whole story about it, which means you get brilliant set piece after. Some of the set pieces in the Moffat era, I think, are fantastic, and the fact that it's on black and white security footage, that helps. The fact that it's jumpy video, that helps. They've got the video of the angel from the same place as I got most of my Heart on the Troughton episodes. Yeah, they got it from Colin at the Place, the comic shop in Wolverhampton. You give 2 VHSs and you get one back with a weeping angel in terrible quality. Actually, the ones I got weren't that, were generally quite high quality, but that's for another day. And of course, this makes for a great reveal, which funny enough isn't as clear. I will explain later when I'm apologising for another mistake that I've made. He's got such gravitas, hasn't he, Ian Glenn? Had he done? I don't think had he done. I certainly hadn't watched Game of Thrones at this point. I came late to Game of Thrones. I then gorged it. And making a virtue here of the fact that the companion is sometimes left out, and that and the doctor leaving the companion in danger by overlooking them, really. But this is such a brilliant. It's a classic Doctor Who scene. And I love all of this whole stuff about having an ancient tome. Anything that is sort of written by dead people, smelling the book is great. And the beats of this are so good. The danger escalates. The way that it's shot as well. Her looking at it and coming forward to us. The angel gradually moving. The reflection in the eye. That's the idea that my friend who'd read the script said, there's this thing about, a thing that the angel could do that should be the whole story, and it's just used for this one amazing scene. I mean, I know it does have ramifications later on, but you could make a whole story about what the image of an angel being the angel and all of that. God, she owns this, doesn't she? I think Alex Kingston's great. I think River Song is fantastic. As I said, I think I might have said this before. My ex-wife, with whom I watched all of these Doctor Who's, because she wasn't my ex-wife then, timey-wimey, did what isn't a great fan of Moffat women, tits with quips, she said. Or maybe I said that in response to what she was trying to say, because it sounds like something witty that I would say. But anyway, I don't know, because they have agency, but are they? I don't know. I'm not a woman. Are they idealized? That they're sassy and they're smart Alex. But is that a bad thing? Why is that a bad thing? I don't know. And I have lots of female friends who are great fans of this era, and they love Amy Pond and they love River Song, and certainly Doctor Who's female demographic has definitely remained pretty healthily high throughout the whole of the modern series. I think this is an absolutely terrific sequence. It takes such the basics of Doctor Who, an ancient text. An ominous line, that which holds the image of an angel itself becomes an angel. A sudden moment of realization of OMNIBUS, we're in big trouble, and the companion's in the trouble, and I love the juxtaposition of their working it out, whilst Amy hasn't worked it out, but she's got the literally ocular proof. Ha ha ha. Yeah, it's absolutely terrific, and they are such a simple monster, aren't they? They're a statue, but they're a statue that can suddenly have fangs. And having it as a black and white television jumpy video image, which again is something we've got to kind of anchor on, is an absolutely terrific visual, because it comes with it as, you know, as sort of, you know, fuggy black and white video is either to do with eavesdropping, isn't it? To do with security cameras, or it's to do with something ancient where, you know, everyone in it is dead because it's an old black and white print from long ago. So both of those things carry with them, you know, a sort of certain haunting, mysterious quality, and that's great shooting it from the back. It's a bit like the bit in Caves of Androzani when they're watching the video screen, isn't it? And she can't switch it off with the remote control. You can't switch an angel off and back on again. I like her, and I do like her funky welding pistol. And this is, you know, this is this is really well directed. All that reflection on her face, she's playing it fantastically. But isn't that a great idea to have gone, you know, don't blink. Okay, you can't blink. That's the thing. We all know that. If you blink, they will get you. But if you keep your eyes open, the image of the angel is reflected in your eye. And so it's a way of taking a monster. Because I have to say, I did worry also about how the angels would exist as a monster outside of Blink. They seemed like such a one-story creation. And of course, they're absolutely magnificent in this, without betraying what they actually were. Yeah, that was really good. I see all this quick fire, bap bap bap. I really like, and I know some people aren't fans of it, but I was trying to talk myself out of it by invoking Catherine's objections, but you know, she needs to speak for herself, and I'm sure articulated it better than I, and she's a smart cookie. But I failed to sum up what it was, why it was that she doesn't like the writing of these women who, you know, meant, you know, I think the intention is to make them empowered and have agency and be good fun. But it's a minefield, isn't it? It's a minefield. But for me, I love Moffat's humor. I love his bantery dialogue. I think it's peppy. It's fun. You know, I was brought up watching Press Gang, which I adored. Now, one of these soldiers, I think one of the soldiers in the cave above, is an actor called Stephen Walters, who doesn't make it down below, and was supposed to be one of the ones who does a lot of the talking later on. And he's a brilliant actor, Stephen Walters. Excellent in Good Cop, and he's in Tin Star, and he was in a brilliant thing called Buried years ago about prison. And he's a Liverpudlian actor, and he's a fantastic actor. And I think he was cast. Well, it said Stephen Matthew Walters in the cast list I saw. And sometimes you have an actor that's got the same name but a different name to differentiate in equity. But I think he's the same guy. But anyway, they lost a one of the soldiers, and I don't quite know why or how. I don't know what the issue was there, but that's something to investigate down the line. But Stephen Walters was supposed to be one of the soldiers, and they amalgamated the roles. What does annoy me, though, is that a couple of the soldiers here that you see quite clearly, Mark Monero, who used to be in EastEnders, who's great, and George Rossi, they're both really good actors who've done loads of stuff. Because they have no lines in this episode, they don't get credited. But they're not extras. Extras are supporting artists who don't have to audition and aren't playing acting roles, principal acting roles. Whereas an actor is. And so an actor who is an equity member, who also is entitled to residuals and blah, 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 is entitled to a credit, and it doesn't matter whether they say lines or not. But it's a modern thing, you know. It's that you know, has started to creep into television productions, which I don't like. It's not much to give an actor a credit, and they just because their speaking part doesn't speak in a particular episode, they still had to turn up, they still had to do the job, blah, 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 blah. If they're in the episode, they should receive a credit. It is the bare minimum. And Doctor Who isn't the only thing that started to do this. It's happened a lot with detective dramas that I've seen and all sorts of stuff where an actor, who's got a speaking part in 3 episodes out of the 4, in the 3rd episode where they're in the office but they don't have a line, they don't get a credit. And that's naughty, because actors casting guest roles are not the same as extras who are, there is a casting process goes on, but it's not the same. And it's not the same job. But there we go. And also it annoys me because people have started to call actors in guest roles extras. I saw a friend of mine do it the other day where he called somebody who was a regular part in Coronation Street an extra. Anyway, let's not get on to the nomenclature of different turns in dramas. I do anyway. There's so much that's good going on here, and that's brilliant, isn't it? Because we've all had something gritty in our eye, and in fact, I mean, sometimes I have a recurring thing with what feels like a hair, and I think it's a phantom hair. Whenever anyone puts makeup on my face, I get this phantom hair in my eye that starts stabbing me, and I get hay fever as well. So sometimes when you get a bit that you can't shift in your eye, and it's what Stephen Moffat, I think, continually does so well. He goes, "What's a thing that everybody has or does that I can turn into something truly horrifying?" So she's got this thing in her eye, and she's rubbing around, and the dust falls out. It's a I say it's a simple visual. Dust is a simple thing, something in your eyes. I'm sure it was very hard to pull off, but it doesn't draw attention to itself because it's so brilliantly done. And it's such a simple idea, but that resonates far more than its apparent simplicity. This is beautiful. I mean, this is a classic Doctor Who scene of couple of guys looking around, and that they're going to end up toast, but beautiful cave, beautiful lighting, beautiful mist, and again the fact that they're in sort of modern fatigues with machine guns, but they're clerics, makes it's familiar and yet it's different, and so it's quite refreshing. And actually, it's quite exciting seeing this sort of military stuff in modern Doctor Who. I still find that quite exciting because even though there's been loads of military in Doctor Who, it's always exciting when people turn up with loads of firepower because that they're kind of there for the firepower not to be enough because the Doctor's on hand and the Doctor's going to have to solve the thing. So that all these tooled up people are in for a whole heap of trouble, and that's quite exciting because I don't know why, because that essentially lots of people are going to get killed. But again, that's beautifully and very effectively done. And of course we have that thing where they're talking over the radio and it's not them, which we get to later, which is truly, truly horrible. It's very good. It's very spooky. It's very atmospheric. And, neither of these guys are doing anything stupid, because sometimes when you have scenes like this, the person that dies is just a bit of an idiot. But, he was cautious. He was still kept his guard up and blah, blah, blah. And this stuff, and this is wonderful because you have the benefit of the visual of the angel, but that glorious thing of that, as far as we know, they're old statues that have been worn down by time. So they're scarier because they're like statue corpses. Because if there's anything scarier than an old sort of spooky statue, it's an old spooky statue that is so old it's been worn away by the passage of time and the inevitability of the elements, which humbles us all, because again, anything that's sort of old is a reminder of our mortality. And you look at an old statue, you think, God, all the hands that crafted that have lived their lives and are long dead, and as are many people that have walked past this and given it the once over, or touched it, or just walked past it, and I will be in that position when somebody in 100 years does this as well, and suddenly it's really humbling. I love the way that the Doctor is with that soldier, and he's a very sweet character, and the Doctor's just sort of reassured him. And Moffat can be quite cruel because you kind of think, oh yeah, the doctor's reassured him. He's going to be all right. That's a brilliant shot. That so I keep saying it's a brilliant set, but it's a mixture, isn't it? However, it's a brilliant visual. I think the visuals in this, from the color palette to the lighting, in this era are fantastic. This is a great episode of Doctor Who. It's got it all. Sassy beginning, military stuff, spooky, couple of set pieces. Oh dear. This is quite cruel. Oh, that's great. The silhouette. And isn't there something brilliant about those statues sort of, caught mid-pose as well? And of course we have this marvellous bit coming up. And of course, this is where I have to confess, I was watching this with my son Louis, who was very young when this was on, and we were travelling to and from London, and I didn't see them enough, and I was always stressed from the journey, and I wanted to be a good dad and all of that sort of thing. And we did watch Doctor Who and had fun with it, and I remember being so excited by this bit, the bit where they realise that, oh crikey, it's not the Aplans, because the Aplans have two heads, isn't it? That I wanted Louis to get it, and I said, and I went, oh, because it's a really scary moment, and I was sort of trying to transmit my enjoyment of that, but he didn't get it. So, but I didn't tell him. I tried to explain it to him. Well, they've got two heads, so what's that? And he hadn't quite worked out that these were supposed to be statues of the Aplans because they look like weeping angels, and I think that is an issue, is that they do. We kind of know they're weeping angels. We don't really think they're statues, but anyway, or maybe that's just retrospect. But a perception filter is a good explanation as to why they haven't picked it up, and it's got them in the middle of what aren't statues to the dead, because the Aplans have, is it two heads? They've got two heads. There we go. And so I tried to explain this to Louis, but get him caught up in the excitement of it. But rather than tell him, so then I got impatient getting him to work it out. And what should have been a fun moment where we got both really excited together ended up with him actually quite upset, because I got impatient that he hadn't twigged what the connotation of the two heads thing was. And it ended up being a really bad moment between us, and instigated entirely by me. And I felt terrible. And I still feel terrible to this day, and I hate myself for it, and I apologised to him for it about a year ago, and he had no memory of it whatsoever. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because you don't have to remember something for it to affect you subconsciously. Anyway, see, what am I doing? I'm talking about a huge regret and something I feel guilty about, instead of enjoying this absolutely cracking moment of revelation in Doctor Who, where these horrible semi-preserved, oh, that was brilliant. It's like one of the figures of Pompeii, something sort of caught mid-movement, but also, atrophied by, the dripping water or your age or the elements, that makes them seem like, they're not just the angels, they're the angels as zombies, they're the angels as mummies, they're the angels as the preserved in death moments of the stricken of Pompeii. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I think it's brilliant. I think it's spooky. And this poor sod, who we've just seen being reassured by the doctor, is caught in the middle of them and doesn't know what we've just been told. And it's so sad for poor old Bob. And what they do with Angel Bob is horrible later, but it's a lovely little cameo, and it's a sweet part, is Bob, and it's oh, poor Bob. I feel a bit sad for Bob, but this is brilliant, of course, because it's a staple of drama, but Doctor Who does it so well, and Stephen Moffat does it brilliantly here. We've got chaos and panic going on elsewhere, and we've got this guy who doesn't know what any of this is about, and it's inevitable now. We know he's toast, but it's making us follow him every step of the way, and that's really cruel and really horrible. I mean, it's horrible, but we feel it. That's the beauty of Doctor Who, is that you do feel every sort of individual death. See, there's a good shot of George Russo, George Russell, yeah. Who doesn't get a credit in this episode, and he's quite a well-known actor because he hasn't got any lines. And there's Mark Monero, who I've seen on stage, and he says he's had a great career actually. I've seen them both actually in sort of London gangster type films. I've got a slight weakness for films that have people like Craig Fairbrass walking into pubs going, "Oh, effing have him!" And they call him the peeler. Why? Because he peels potatoes and then hits people to death with a baseball bat. It was a sort of guilty pleasure of mine over lockdown. Poor old Bob. And I remember not quite knowing what was going on. And of course, it's the way it taunts the Doctor is really horrible because, it's really horrible. This, isn't it? Because you feel that the Doctor, hopefully had given Bob some useful advice, and actually Bob's dead, and Bob's dead, isn't he? Oh, that's so sad. And this is a bit like, isn't it, Miss Evangelista's ghost? It's a conversation with a dead person, which is so it's a recurrent. I hate the word trope, but it's of a similar ilk to the Miss Evangelista thing. But it is disquieting. It is odd. There is something odd about conversations with the dead, about a connection with the past, with what is gone, which is why I think timey-wimey is quite an intriguing idea. But of course, if you can then go and change it, that's not helpful to me dramatically. But I think something about connecting with something from beyond the grave. There's something really humbling about that because it heightens your own mortality. You know, if something seems so real and alive that you know is dead, well, the fact that you feel real and alive is nothing because you know, in a very short space of time, when all things are considered, will also be dead. I like the fact that Octavian thinks the Doctor's a prick, and Ian Glenn's in no way arch about it. He's obviously a good man and a decent man and a man who does his duty. But and we love the Doctor, but the Doctor, if you are cut from Octavian's cloth, as it were, somebody like that Doctor is an anarchist and irresponsible, and this is brilliant. The fact that Amy is infected by the angel. That's a new sort of thing for them, isn't it? The fact that we can, suddenly you can turn into an angel. That's pretty horrible. This is a great setting, and so they've got to get up to the base of the spaceship, which is a lovely problem for them to have. And I like all this sort of military stuff because that makes it all seem exciting. And when they all get defensive, it makes you feel like the enemy are closing in. And you've got this extra level of jeopardy because and there's nothing like a flashing their torch losing its power. It's brilliant. It's so good because it's taking us to the cliffhanger, and we've got a problem with Amy. We've got the monsters closing in. We've got them unable to get to where they need to get to. It's and I love that. It's brilliantly directed, but I love and it's inherited from Blink, the stylistic thing of the sort of camera shutter noise and the sudden, they're moving, they're getting closer and closer. I love that. It's such a brilliant way of depicting the way that they move, of the sudden darkness, the flash of darkness, and they've moved forward a couple of feet and changed their position. That's all absolutely terrific. Bedwettingly scary. I imagine if you're a kid, that is terrifying, more terrifying than your dad being a prick on your visit to London. I can't like the fact that the way he had to get her out is to bite her. That's quite Doctor Who-y as well. You've had all these different things. If you've got space teeth alive, that's all I'm saying. See, that's all great fun. So Darren Morfitt there, he gets a line. He's what's his character called? He's in a film called Dog Soldiers. And he plays, what's his character he plays? Who's this gobby Geordie soldier who, and it's a similar sort of setup to this. It's Sean Pertwee and Kevin McKidd and a load of soldier guys on on maneuvers, and they end up, besieged in a cottage by a werewolf, and it's great. And Darren Morfitt's absolutely fantastic in it, and has got a brilliant line that I don't want to spoiler it. But even my friend John, who's not a big Doctor Who fan, but John and I used to watch loads of movies together, but we never watched Dog Soldiers together. But he texted me or tweeted me and said the name of the character from Dog Soldiers is in Doctor Who, and I went, yeah, I know, it's great, isn't it? I died in fear. That's so horrible. And actually the way that the actor does it as well, he still plays it as Bob's diction, Bob's quite innocent, simple, direct sort of delivery, rather than relishing it and being sarcastic. And that, in fact, that sort of dissonance, that distance from the emotion of what he's saying, makes it even more sort of cold and clinical. It's a very good choice. It's a clever choice. Adam Smith's done a great job with the direction of this as well. It does feel like a sort of movie, doesn't it? And having it down in the caves, this is a great setting. Lighting's fantastic. All that cutting, those close-ups, the chunk, chunk, chunk. They're moving. And I have. And this, and I think this is an odd cliffhanger. The cliffhanger isn't the danger. The cliffhanger is the Doctor, doing his victory speech. And it depends on the actor. It depends on rhythm. It's a hero moment. It's the Doctor knows they're getting out of it, but we don't know what that is, and so the cliffhanger resolution will be, what is it that the Doctor's done? But I love that. So it's based entirely on rhythm, and the sort of the money shot here, and a hero moment. What the hell's gone on? We don't know what's gone on, and we're distracted from what's gone on because the BBC have put a blooming avatar of Graham Norton advertising Strictly Come Dancing or whatever's coming next over the action, and I was absolutely furious. Hugely furious. And I do, it's the sort of thing that it's a Philistine thing to do. It's a program. It's a piece of it. Every shot, every rhythm, every piece of dialogue, every pitch of performance has been thought about, has had industry and hard work put into it. Now, all right, it's not brain surgery, etc., 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 but it takes skill, it takes imagination, it takes creativity. And to bung a logo on it to plug what's coming next is an act of such desecration that I can understand were it performed by somebody who didn't work for a public service broadcaster. But I still wouldn't approve of it. And it's dogs in the corner, logos in the corner, and all of that sort of stuff. Just let us be free to watch the program. You don't eat a meal with the waiter keep nudging you and saying, dessert's coming in a minute, or here's a leaflet for our other restaurant, and all that sort of stuff. Let people, or at least let people opt out of. Shrunk credits is another thing. I know that's a thing that's specific to me, but the dog in the corner during the action at a climactic moment that the episode has been building to put that there is. Can you hear? I'm furious about it so many years later. This is a joyous podcast. It's because it's such a good episode as well. But I would have been annoyed if they'd done that with Underworld. I'd have been annoyed if they'd done that with the cliffhanger episode 3 of Death to the Daleks. It doesn't have to be a work of art. And I was. But what do you know? What heartened me about it was that I was so incensed. I went down and I did it to the Frog and Bucket in Preston, which wasn't a great club and was certainly not one where you'd deal in anything esoteric or whimsical. It all had to be pretty on the nail, and you always had to win their approval pretty much by, especially if you looked and sounded like me. I had to spend the first 5 minutes really taking one for the team and eliciting their trust and doing loads of banter with them so that they eventually went, oh, he's all right, and basically insult myself and insult them and blah, 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 whatever. But I got there, and then I did this whole speech where I was so furious and impassioned in my fury about them putting a logo for the next program on the program that I just enjoyed, that I got a round of applause. And I wasn't expecting to for a start, I didn't really know what I was doing. That's what happens when one is emceeing sometimes. You go off on a riff and you create a moment or whatever. But, I hadn't planned on getting a round of applause. I didn't really know where I was going with it. But I was obviously so impassioned. And maybe... maybe they agreed. Maybe you don't have to be a geeky Doctor Who fan to go, I don't want a moment, the climactic moment of the television programme I've invested my time in, to be ruined by the very people who were giving it to me, because if they don't respect it, how the hell is anybody else supposed to? That's the thing. If the curator of the museum thinks the exhibits are worth putting stickers over, then why do they think anybody will visit the place? Do you know what I mean? I hate to say the lunatics have taken over the asylum, but it seems to me, if you're either underestimating your audience, which is cynical, and nobody gets anywhere by underestimating the audience, and how dare you as well. That sort of assuming the audience is stupid has never created anything brilliant. And in fact, I would probably have assumed that audience wouldn't have even cared what I was talking about with the thing that I did. And actually, when I did it, there was enough either in common or the way that I delivered it or something about what it was that they connected with it and they liked it. So I didn't go with my assumption, because you can't. And also, you don't patronize the audience. And if you don't care about the stuff that you're putting out there, if you have such disdain for the work that's been put in by and paid for by the license payer, then you're in the wrong business. Gosh, this is supposed to be what a happy time. Well, I am quite happy when I'm sort of divesting myself of pent-up fury. What I've done there, I've divested myself, the guilt over my child, my anger over the closing credits and not crediting certain people, and the logo appearing as but it's a great episode. I think it's hard because I'm not as familiar with New Who as Old Who. I've still watched that probably, a good 9 or 10 times. But I think with Moffat in particular as well, you have to really be listening to the dialogue, which is hard to do when you're commentating over it. But there are so many exchanges there that would be gold dust in any other Doctor Who story that I think we take for granted with Stephen Moffat. I think his dialogue sings and his humour pervades the whole thing, and without ever sending it up or undermining it. It's the humour is almost a rhythm and a motor of the dynamic between the characters, and that makes you invest in them. And also, humour is very. I've just been thinking and writing and broadcasting a little bit about the Philip Hinchcliffe era, and I think that the humour is deployed there very well, where it's it's quite smart humour, but it's never silly and it never undermines the action, and I think that's what goes on here. I mean, yes, people do talk like witty banterers, but that's okay. It's television, it's not real, and I would rather have that than something sort of mundane or too prosaic or just a bit stilted. So bring it on. So I have to choose my 3 favourite things, and Joe has chosen 3 of himself, all in different backgrounds, and as he said, he recorded those all before the bit that we just heard, because in true Moffat style, we gone a timey-wimey. So what are my favourite things? Well, I think the set piece with the Angel and Amy in that scene, it's going to be that scene. See, there's so many great set pieces, and also the bit where they realise that they're not the Aplans because they don't have 2 heads. And I like the fact that they've got the perception filter there that sort of explains their slowness as well, which is quite nice, because we wouldn't know. We don't know the Aplans have 2 heads because we don't know what Aplans are. And that, as I say, that bit is slightly, because they do look like weeping angels. It's slightly unclear, isn't it? But it works, and that moment of real, and it's all to do with the pacing of it as well, the realization when it comes in, and that's all to do with the direction and the writing and the urgency. That's what I love about the episodes when they get sort of dramatic and exciting in Modern Who, is the pacing of them and the cutting and all of that, and that's done so well. The scene where they suddenly realize they're surrounded by weeping angels, and the fact that they're sort of, abstractions of the weeping angel physiognomy because they've been corroded by time and dripping water and sort of natural entropy, if you like, that makes them as a visual even more terrifying than they were. And I think that evoking of the frozen dead of Pompeii, the mummified corpses of Pompeii, mid panic, or it's so heartbreaking yet so terrifying, and to have that sort of writ large and come to life, or potentially coming to life, I think is a fantastic, another fantastic set piece. And so that's two scenes. So I've got to think of something different for my third thing. Or is it the cliffhanger? It is a great cliffhanger, isn't it? I do like the lighting, though. I like the setting of the caves. I like the fact that they're military clerics. That gives it a bit of its sort of oomph, a bit of its backbone. You need something to sort of level the arch comic banter and interplay between the Doctor and River and Amy, where if you're not too careful, you could get a sass overload. So I like Octavian. I think I'll probably choose Ian Glenn next week anyway. But I do like the fact that you have this sort of backup of these military clerics, which just give it a bit of unit style sort of heft, if you like. But it also it cuts through the banter. I do like the pre-credits scene as well, though. I like the fact that it's the streets. Ha ha ha. I think River Song is great in these stories. So what am I going to go with? But I like Angel Bob too. He's so scary and so horrible. What shall I choose? Cliffhanger, Angel Bob, River Song. I mean, Matt Smith and Karen Gillan both deserve a mention. Adam Smith, the director, too. But I think the fact that they're warrior monks, I like that. That just seems to me to be an ingredient that gives the episode just a little bit of extra oomph and a bit of extra grounding, and because, as I said before, it's a sort of recognizable thing, but it's given a bit of a modern twist, and it also gives us sort of modern style military in a futuristic story, and it just makes it a bit more sort of grounded and believable. So yeah, they're my things. Amy and the image of the angel in the screen, which is a classic scene and always will be. The realizing that they're not Aplan statues, they're weeping angels, and they're corroded, melted ones as well. And the fact that they're warrior monks. Those are my three things. Partially because Joe and I talk about, because I've never served in the military, and Joe has, Joe has, and I find that a very interesting perspective, and I admire anybody that puts themselves through all that rigorous training and puts themselves in the line of fire, and puts the freedom and safety of other people before their own, all that sort of thing, which is nothing. And I can talk a good game just about, but I'm not good for much else. So I do admire people that have been in real situations that I can only imagine, and I suspect my imagination is not even close. So I'm interested in Joe's perspective on that, because I'm sure he will have a perspective on the militaristic aspects of this. Hope so, anyway. But maybe that'll be for episode 2. But anyway, let's see what Joe Lewallen, American Doctor Who fans' favourite thing about Time of the Angels number 1 is going to be. And there's a visual here. And he's on a great big JCB tractor thing.
First favorite thing about Time of Angels is the opening. I saw this, and this was before I'd ever heard the term timey-wimey, but it's just a classic example of Stephen Moffat's writing. From the hallucination, to the spaceship, to Amy and the Doctor in the museum, 12,000 years later, and then meeting back up, River getting shot into space, landing in the TARDIS, Follow that ship. Fantastic. More, please.
Oh, I should have chosen that. It's so obvious now. He says it. Oh, by the way, it's a John Deere truck, not a JCB. I don't want to get my tractors wrong. It might not even be a tractor. It's got a grab. What is it? It's one of them. A digger. He's on a digger. It's a big yellow digger. It's like Bessie with teeth. It is a brilliant opening. Why didn't I choose the opening? I should have, because I think when I was thinking of the opening, I was thinking of the airlock scene, which I do like, but it's a sort of bit of sass, and it's got the dinner jacket thing going on, and it's a bit oldie worldy and a bit sass. But no, he's right, because it's got, and added Mike Skinner from the Streets, because it's got the hallucination idea, because it's got the time travel element to it. It's also got the sass, but then it's got the hero moment and the rescue, and then, but it leads into the story. Follow that ship. It's beautifully constructed. It's extremely well directed. It's got the mystery as well because of the Doctor and Amy with the box. It has everything: action, wit, intrigue, sass, clever time travel twist, hero moment, bam, into the action. Oh, Joe, I mean, I knew that. I knew everything that you said. I agreed with, and yet I chose crappy thing about having soldiers in it. Yeah, somebody else should be doing my job. Who else could present my own podcast? I'm sure somebody would do it better. Anyway, dash, I should have got that point. But yeah, well put, Joe. And I'm so glad it still works for you now as it did then when this was only your 4th episode of Doctor Who. And in your own words, more please. Number 2, Joe's number 2, where he's inside, sitting on a sofa, with 2 caps hanging behind him, and he's stroking a lovely-looking dog. So here we are, Joe. What have you got to say?
Second favorite thing I like about Time of Angels and the whole story are the Anglican soldiers. Doctor Who is not always respectful toward the church or the military. You don't have to be respectful toward those institutions. I was making fun of the Army last night. You can do that. But I thought this was pretty unique in New Who. It's not always respectful. In this instance, the soldiers were not portrayed as buffoons or antagonistic toward our heroes, or just disposable red shirts to be mowed down by the enemy of the week. So it was a great performance by the actor doing Father Octavian, Ian Glenn, and I really liked his portrayal. I do question their rank structure because they seem to have one senior officer and a bunch of squaddies. Doesn't always work. Where are your sergeants? They did have a combat engineer to blow a hole in the wall to get into the Maze of the Dead. It's good to have combat engineers. I served as a combat engineer. I'm filming this on Veterans Day, so service is always on my mind, but especially today. So if you served in any capacity for any nation, thank you for your service.
You see, I love that. I'm so glad Joe brought that into the equation. I mean, as I say, I'm a weedy liberal peacenik, and I think it's so interesting to get intelligent and respectful commentary from a genuine perspective of somebody who's been part of the military, and we've had very interesting conversations about the portrayal of the military in Doctor Who, and Joe is very shows great equanimity there as well, of not even the bits that he when he doesn't particularly like what Doctor Who's done with the military, doesn't get cross. You see people these days. I mean, I saw somebody on Twitter today banging on about something, going, and 11 does this, and you go, just because you don't like a thing, or the Doctor behaves in a way that you wouldn't, wind your neck in, for goodness sake. And it's interesting that Joe will go, yeah, I didn't like the way that the military, and I didn't like that, but I do like this, and I do, and that's how you have a conversation, and that's how you deal with the show when it does something that you don't particularly like. And Joe has every right to get affronted, because he's I think when Doctor Who can portray the military in a bad light, people who've genuinely put their lives on the line and serve their country might go, oh, that's a bit rich for you to say, television people. You try doing what we've done. And I always think that when I think of my own political views about, it's all very well to rattle them out in an intellectual fashion, but it's a bit obtuse to do it when you're talking to people that have actually, done that really hard stuff. And so even though I'm not a militaristic fellow of any sort, I do have great admiration, and increasingly so as I get older, for people that have done that stuff that I've never had to do. And indeed the generations before me who I see being belittled now, as now that we just look at the past and because they didn't have certain standards about certain things that we do, how awful they must all have been. You think, yeah, so awful that they were on Normandy beaches and doing things that would have absolutely scared the bewinkles out of you keyboard warriors. So I'm very pleased. Well, also really pleased that having belittled my own choice, it's now been the choice that Joe has made, and so now we're actually 1-1. So I mean, not only is it brilliant because he's chosen the thing that I chose that I wasn't sure was a good choice, and now think is a splendid choice. He gave some real proper heartfelt insight into that, and some very measured. And I would be very interested to talk. I must talk to Joe about this. Actually, I'm thinking out loud now. To talk to Joe about the militaristic things, because I'm very interested. I was watching some Capaldi episodes recently, where he suddenly just decides he takes a dislike to soldiers for some reason that probably seemed really cool at the time, and just seems a bit awful. And I get the thing of the Doctor, the Doctor being cross with the Brigadier for blowing up the Silurians. That's a really interesting moral dilemma, because he needs the Brigadier and he uses the Brigadier and he cooperates with the Brigadier, but he doesn't approve of the Brigadier's methods. But then there's the moral conundrum of going, well, you don't want to blow people up yourself, Doctor, but you're perfectly happy to let the Brigadier blow people up for you. And that's all. I think that's all dealt with in quite an interesting way. And it's always going to be a moral dilemma with Doctor Who, that we say, this is the peaceful hero who uses books and intellect and reason, but still blows things up and still, requires it. And it's all very well to say, well, I don't approve of your methods, soldier chap. But then you go, yeah, there's loads of things coming towards us and we're the ones with the machine guns. Do you want us to use our methods now? Oh, yes, please. And if they don't work, I'll do some wires that will blow them all up as well. And you go, oh, so you're not that actually. So, there is a conundrum at the heart of Doctor Who, and it's worth a sort of rational and interesting conversation. But also, yes, in drama, military people can be, cannon fodder and grunts, and that's not very becoming. So, but he's also shown me that I perhaps shouldn't choose Ian Glenn next week, because he kind of encapsulated Ian Glenn's performance in the fact that the soldiers are Anglican priests and all of that. So I will give Ian Glenn his nod now, because I think it's a very measured, very performance of a man of great principle and stoicism that the Doctor Who is full of, and they can be quite boring parts if you're not careful. But Ian Glenn has a real natural gravitas. I think he's an absolutely terrific actor, and I think he's pitch perfect in this, and it's one of my favourite performances of the whole of this period of Doctor Who, which is why I asked Stephen Moffat about him, and I should really have asked a question about intricacies of scripting or how he was shaping the show. But I like my actors. I like my actors. Currently watching Ian Glenn in a thing called Silo, and of course I think he was great in Game of Thrones, and I'm very pleased because he got credited quite high up in Game of Thrones on a single caption. But as the series went on and his character, became, he wasn't the main part, but he was a sterling a sterling sort of lead support part. He then goes and gets the "and" credit at the end, and when somebody gets an "and" credit, it to me is a proper affirmation. I yearn one day to have an "and" credit in something. Then I will die happy. I won't die happy. I'll never be happy. That's the curse of being me. Anyway, let's not get into that. You've heard enough of my regrets, right? But Doctor Who takes me to my happy place. Although it doesn't. It sometimes pulls the unhappy things into sharp focus. But maybe it expunges them. that this is a process of catharsis. Therapyist podcast. Joe's third thing. Surely he's going to choose one of my 2 set pieces. I was a bit, I felt that choosing 2 set piece scenes seemed to be a bit lazy, but they are so good. I couldn't not choose one of them. Go on, choose one of my set piece scenes, Joe. Joe's third thing is he's standing outside in front of something, which he might explain what it is. It's not quite. Oh, it's a truck with bales of hay in it. These videos, I so want to do these for YouTube, but it's quite low on my list of things to do. But I am going to be put on the Patreon page. I'm going to be showing the videos so that you can see. You can put a face to the voice, as it were. And eventually, one day, hopefully, I'll do these as videos as well. But I've got so many things to do first. Anyway, here's Joe in front of an open back truck with some bales of hay in it, telling me what his third favourite thing about this episode of Doctor Who is.
The third favourite thing about Time of Angels is River's song. I know she featured in the opening, but I'm giving River her own segment. This story was my introduction to the character, and I thought Alex Kingston had great chemistry with Matt Smith, great chemistry with Karen Gillan, and great chemistry and great interactions with Father Octavian. So River is just really awesome throughout the whole story, and up until Husbands of River Song, this remained my favorite River Song story. Big fan of the character. My wife just bought me the latest Big Finish River Song story with a unit. Really interested in giving that a listen whenever I get the time. But that's my third thing of Time of Angels is River Song. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe. I nearly chose River Song, but I didn't. I do think she's great. I think maybe it's because my ex-wife's doubts were ringing in my ears. Or maybe it's because it's become fashionable now to knock her a bit, and I don't know why, because I think she's brilliant. She's got such charisma. She speaks Stephen Moffat's dialogue fluently. I read recently there was something in the news saying that they'd asked her to in for another part, and she'd either turned it down or wasn't available. So can you imagine? I think she was born to play River Song, and I think River Song is an important character with Doctor Who. Even though I resist timey-wimey storytelling, I find it provides more problems than it does solutions. I nonetheless understand the appeal of it to people with different perhaps minds than mine, who like sort of conundrums and problems, and certainly in terms of being a writer I'm not clever enough to write something that's timey-wimey with all those strands. Give me a beginning, middle, and an end in that order. So I'm aware it's possibly a shortcoming of mine, but I do think with Doctor Who it slightly detracts from the drama, because it means it gets into Bill and Ted territory where you can go and stop something from happening, and then you go, well, why don't you do all that all the time, etc., etc. But the River Song idea of the love story, told in a fragmented way, sometimes backwards, forwards, sideways, is a brilliant idea, and can shine a light on love and unrequited love and relationships and interaction that can be sort of heartbreaking or funny or and emotional in a different way, in a skewed way that only Doctor Who and sci-fi can do, which means it's very worth doing. And when you've got the charisma in buckets that Alex Kingston has, and the interaction that she has, as Joe said, with not just with Matt Smith, but with Ian Glenn and with Karen Gillan, it's it makes for a zinger. So yeah, good choice. I nearly chose her, didn't I? I nearly chose River. And he's given me an out 5 and 10. I think this is Joe's shameless plug. So we might end both episodes with this. I don't know, but anyway, here's a bit. This isn't for Flesh and Stone, so it's 5 and 10 shameless plug. Let's see what Joe is shameless plugging, because he deserves to. What a guest, hey? I hope you've enjoyed having him on. I certainly have, and as I say, it means a great deal to me that, having done these podcasts, there are names now that I read. They're on the, I read them out at the end of the episodes, of the people who, kind enough, daft enough to send some of their hard-earned cash my way in order that, what is this? It's just a man talking. But there are enough of you that allow this man to talk. I don't know what you get out of it. It's the eternal dilemma of a creative. You hope what you do is good, but sometimes you can't quite believe that there's so much out there. Do you know what I mean? But there are this group of people, and Joe is among them, whose names are now familiar to me because they're the people that keep these projects going, that have shown faith in them, and not just faith, financial input. And that's not to belittle those of you who listen on iTunes and podcasts. Podcasts are free, and that's the beautiful thing about them. It's very democratic, and I listen to loads of podcasts that I love that I don't pay for. So I don't think people should be obliged to. I'm glad that there are enough listeners out there, but I'm also love this model whereby if people choose to contribute, they can and they do. But not only that, I'm familiar with their names and they drop me a line and I'm able to go, oh yeah, well, and thanks. And they go, no, it's great because we like this and we like that, or we don't, nobody says we don't like that actually. And here's my thing, and oh, here's a thing to tell you, and something occur, and you've suddenly got this interaction and this relationship with people that you've never met, but you talk to semi-regularly, and it's always a delight to hear from Joe, partially because, as I say, I think we have very different backgrounds and outlooks on many number of things, and have had different stimuli in life, and yet I hugely, respect and like him, even though we've never had an actual conversation. And I think it's based on respectful discourse and exchange of ideas, founded in a mutual love of a show that we nonetheless came to in completely different ways. And I always look forward to hearing from Joe, and the fact that somebody like him, who has, as I say, is from a completely different background, it somehow connects to this nonsense that I'm spurting now, I think is a testament to Doctor Who and what it does for all of us. And I think that's a good thing. I think that's a marvellous thing. Unlike this, sometimes this toxicity that you see on social media where people get furious with people for liking the show in a different way to how they like them and all that sort of thing. The things that unite us, always, not just in Doctor Who, are always greater than the things that divide us. And so, I'm much more interested in, which is why I don't really engage in, internet fracas. I'm much more interested in talking to people, who we may have all sorts of, as I say, different life experiences through which, through which we see, Doctor Who, and also Doctor Who informs our life experiences, but therefore in a kaleidoscope of different ways. And I think that's marvelous. And there is more that unites us than that divides us. And I think that's how you have to live your life. And I'm very lucky that this has enabled me to do that in a small and probably insignificant way. But sometimes small, beautiful things is what life is all about, isn't it? So I'm really glad I've got to this one with Joe, because I really wanted to see what he had to say. And I haven't been disappointed. He said it as articulately as he does in our occasional internet exchanges, emails. Yes, internet exchanges. That's what you call emails, you old duffer. Anyway, yeah, I'm feeling enthused by that. That was a positive experience. I'm sorry that with the Moffat ones, I probably miss a lot of their greatest assets, which is the dialogue and the interaction and the chemistry, because I'm always having to talk. That's the nature of it. And I think Moffat stuff perhaps particularly suffers with that. I think Robert Holmes' stuff would too, were I not aware of every single zinger that's coming. But that's again the nature of when I'm commentating on new episodes. He said about episodes that aren't that new at all. There are people that were born when this was on who are probably capable of somersaults and driving. Who knows? But anyway, it was another life. Gosh, Preston Frog and Bucket, that's gone now. So is John the Doorman, who was the doorman there, who was a lovely fella. He's died as well, bless him. I'm not married to Catherine anymore. But I don't think they put stickers on the dramatic bits in programs. They still shrink credits, which irritates me. But I think they're called dogs, aren't they? I think they've put the dogs down, which I'm pleased about. That's the only time I'm pleased about such a thing happening. But gosh, timey-wimey. It's cruelly woolly. I remember when this episode was new. I remember it going out the first time. I mean, I remember the Leisure Hive going out the first time, but I know that was a long time ago. I was a child then. I feel like I was a fully formed adult then, but of course I've changed and learnt a lot since Flesh and Time of Angels, which means probably in an equal time forward, I would have changed and learnt again. Hopefully for the better. Hopefully we're always progressing, and we're not set in stone, because that would be scary.
Shameless plug. When I first started filming these videos almost 3 weeks ago, I didn't really have a plan for a plug. I don't have a blog. I don't have a podcast. I don't have a YouTube. I barely have a Twitter. You don't have to follow me on Twitter. But something has come up, something that's very important. My cousin Annie, the daughter of my cousin Gary, is a special education teacher, and she has been battling brain cancer for over 5 years. They've gotten some of the cancer out, but some of it still remains, and they're fighting to save her life. Her remarkable father, Gary Wilson, my cousin, has raised a lot of money with the GoFundMe, organized not that long ago, but every little bit helps, and this is the biggest audience I can come up with to spread the word. And if you could donate to Annie's cause, that would be most wonderful. I really appreciate that, and Toby for this opportunity to spread the word.
Welcome, everybody, to this Happy Times and Places for Flesh and Stone, the second part of the Time of Angels story. We do that thing now, don't we, where we call it Time of Angels, Flesh and Stone. The Empty Child, the Doctor Dances, which is not as elegant. You'd have thought we'd have settled on a more elegant way of doing it, wouldn't we? We don't refer to the Ambassadors of Death, episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, or whatever. And I think originally when that sort of thing happened, I think we assumed we'd just call it by its first episode, but we don't. We sort of garble it all together, which is, as I say, I don't think particularly elegant, but it seems to be the way that we've decided to do things, which is okay. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but I'm surprised we haven't come up with a better solution. Anyway, welcome. Thank you for listening to this podcast. I am in the company of Joe Lewallen, whom I have never met, but with whom I have exchanged views and emails and thoughts over the past couple of years, I guess, and I'm always interested in his perspective, and he's always a very game and willing and open and honest participant and correspondent, and came to Doctor Who relatively late in life, and so has taken a totally different journey through the series, and I think at the time of recording still has some classic series stories to go. I feel slightly guilty that Happy Times and Places has, I think, dictated the schedule of some of his watching that he would otherwise have done in a different way. But nonetheless, this was a very early part of Joe's journey into Doctor Who, and I think I did okay last time, didn't I? So I think it's all to play for in the let's see if we can come up with the same. No, maybe I got one. I got 1 out of 3, but that means I could still, in the scorebook, I could still win. I'd have to do pretty well. It's a 43-minute long episode, and we've got to choose 3 things and a bonus. But let's see how we do. So I am going to press play in 3, 2, 1, and so we've got a bit of a previously on. I like a previously on. It's funny because was it this season where they didn't have the next time on the DVD, and I was furious. I found that a really odd. They made a few odd decisions. It's funny, at the time of recording, we are approaching RTD era 2. And there is commentary and musing and speculation based on the fact that this might be a reset in terms of season or series numbers, and that it won't be, series 14, it will be back to series 1. they actually did try to do this, didn't they, with the beginning of the Moffat era. For a while, they tried to call this, and in some of the marketing and packaging and stuff, and so early on, I don't know if it made it to, but I was definitely aware, because I knew a couple of people involved in the series, and so there was certainly, it was in the air that the plan was that this was going to be series 1. It was a reset, blah de blah, and of course that soon ended up not happening. So I'm interested that I'm reminded of that as we have the same sort of debates going on right now. It does seem a bit odd to kind of say, yeah, all that stuff you know and love, that never happened, and it doesn't alienate people. People do jump on board with a new Doctor. It people nip in out of curiosity, and they're not going to go, oh well, hang on, in Doctor Who magazine they're calling it season 5. I won't be able to watch it then. Do you know what I mean? So yes, it seems a slightly odd thing to do, and it sounds to me like the imposition of a TV executive or brand person. Those people, many of whom infest the television industry these days and get paid an awful lot to come up with ideas like that. I hope my tone of voice indicates how I feel about them. Anyway, it's a curious cliffhanger, that, isn't it? And that's a beautiful effect. I love all that. I mean, this point of view shooting and the upside down shot and the mucking about with the gravity. All of this is very clever, very nicely shot. It's a good visual. It's slightly eccentric. It's very nicely directed, this, actually. All of this stuff is fantastic. And I was reading about this, that having done, a particular sort of story, a haunted house kind of story with Blink, Moffat was kind of keen to invoke the idea of Aliens, which is a wonderful and effective sequel to a minimalist. Essentially, it's a haunted house, isn't it? The things that go bump on the Nostromo of Alien, which is sort of atmospheric and small number of characters being picked off, etc. And this is military hardware, Marines, as much of an actiony thriller as you can get with a Doctor Who. And that's a good move, because the Angels seem to be, on the surface, I would say, quite a limited monster. You go, well, they're good for a story where you need statues on Earth in the 20th century in a haunted house, and so to put them in a different kind of story, I think it was a bold move, and I think has ensured their longevity, because I think from a design point of view, they're in danger of, as I say, being anchored in one particular sort of kind of story or métier or whatever. But so putting them in this is great, and I love this sort of thing when it's in Doctor Who. I do like it when Doctor Who has it's sort of having your cake and eating it, going, we've got bullets and soldiers and things like that the Doctor sort of disapproves of, but they do make things really exciting. And I remember seeing the gunfire from here in the Next Time trailer was thrilling and very exciting. He's absolutely just that all of this Moffat dialogue is so good, and this is great because this is suggesting there's an element of River's story that is a threat to the Doctor. She has some kind of secret, and I think that sort of stuff threads its through quite nicely. I do lose track a little bit of the River and Doctor stuff, but that's only because I've not watched these episodes millions of times, and I'm sort of slightly less interested in the exact timey-wimey bits of it as I am. I think the emotional journey is very interesting, and I think their relationship is very interesting and very well acted. But the scripting pirouettes interest me less than the sort of individual stories, if you like. This is brilliant. I absolutely love this, that it's the light from the gunfire that gives us the light where we can see, and so you have the movements, those quick flash movements, halted only by the illumination of the muzzle flare. I think that's again, like the reflection in the eye. It's a brilliant idea of going, right, I've got these creatures that do these things. How can I stop them from being one-trick ponies? How can I play with how they're done visually, and how we can shoot them and what we can do with them, and etc., etc., etc. And I think that is terrific. I love that sequence. I think that's really exciting, and this is brilliant. It's bought us a bit of time, but they're an inexorable menace. They absolutely will not stop. Anything you put in their way, they overcome, and they keep coming. And the clang of metal, all of that stuff, make for ingredients for a tense, exciting, sci-fi, grown-up sort of sci-fi drama, albeit Batman in with a tweed jacket and a bow tie. Oh, and yes, okay. So they go to this is where you very cleverly go. And now we can have a sort of foresty set inside a spaceship, which is always sort of lovely. It always reminds me a bit of the Ark. I love that episode title of the Ark, The Steel Sky, and where they have basically a big zoo on the spaceship. But it's great because it gives us, seeing as this is a story about a spaceship that has crashed on a planet. We start off in the airlock. Oh, and thanks to Michael Herbert, who's one of a member of Patronville, who also sends me factoids on Twitter occasionally. He's an expert on working class history and is writing something on Malcolm Hulke, I think, Michael. Who reminded me, or I hadn't put two and two together, that Simon Dutton in episode 1 is the brother of the writer and actor Julian Dutton, who's done some stuff for Big Finish. And I've only met Julian once. I met him, I was on the Big Finish podcast with him at around Christmas time. And we got on very well, and he was lovely, and we've become Facebook friends. And Julian is, has oh no, because Julian also did University Challenge, the alumni's one year, and I was for many years the warm-up man for University Challenge. But anyway, so yes, I do have a connection to Simon Dutton, is that I kind of know his brother. I think we're Facebook friends. I mean, so, we're practically married. And she does this very well. The way that she does the countdown. And again, that's one of those absolute flourishes of Moffat genius, where he just takes something as simple as a countdown of numbers and sort of throws it in, and it suddenly becomes something so every day as a countdown of numbers. No big effects, no huge moments, no big speech, and just flings it in to the dialogue, and it suddenly becomes something that is puzzling and ultimately scary. And Karen Gillan does it really, really well. I made him say comfy chairs. That's so good, that countdown. That's so clever. He's got so many ideas. I think I mentioned this in episode 1 that somebody I knew at the time was saying, you read that script and you go, any one of these ideas would be enough for a story. Stop having too many good ideas and sticking them all in the same script. It counted down from 10. He's so good, isn't he, Matt Smith? It's hard to... Now that he's a thing of the past, it's extraordinary, isn't it? Because he was new and unknown. I'd seen him in Party Animals, but I hadn't massive... I think we'd only seen the first episode, even though I'd quite liked it. But no, I wasn't really aware of him, I have to be honest. And I thought he was absolutely great straight away. This is great. Again, this is classic Doctor Who. People, the angels are laughing. Everyone talks about Moffat and his, sharp dialogue. he's so good at the scares. He's so good at doing the stuff that is, and the crack in the wall, look at that. And again, and that was inspired by a crack in his son's wall, wasn't it? Again, so you've got a countdown, so you've got the crack in the wall. And this, of course, becomes the theme for the whole season, really. But I think that's quite a nice, and it's what we have now, isn't it? We have, seasons with a sort of linking overall arc, and I think that's a good way of doing it. To reward the regular viewer, but then to seed it into the individual stories and hope it doesn't dominate too much, so that somebody nipping in is alienated. But I think people know when they come in to watch a series, they might go, I might have to look that up, or I might have to catch up on that, and that's what a previously for and all of that is for. I mean, I'm pretty well trained now in watching a previously on and going, oh right, well, so those are the bits they're going to answer this episode or refer to this episode. I mean, you can sort of tell, can't you, by what they choose. That's very, very good. This is a fantastic. It's beautifully lit, and it's a great, as I say, a sort of change of scenery for this adventure. She's so good, isn't she? And this is actually really scary. Yeah, and that's beautiful. It's beautifully shot, and it's slightly handheld, isn't it? Slightly, the camera is not steady there. That's a deliberate choice. It's got a slight wobble to it. And he's left his coat, which of course becomes very, very important because he's going to talk to her later, and his jacket will be on. And did you notice that the first time round? A lot of people did. And that's where it gets into the area of sort of timey-wimey, which I'm slightly less sure about. I like a bad wolf where it's basically doesn't really mean all that much, but it's a thing you can sort of go, oh yeah, no, I know that means that's important. I think I'm slightly less enamored of the timey-wimey stuff, just because it makes my head hurt a little bit, and I think it's because I'm. Alex Kingston's great. I know, and I know there are people that hate this kind of, smart aleck repartee and I'm one step ahead of you and I've got a witty clip. I actually really like. I really like it. I think it suits Doctor Who. Doctor Who's always had fun doing, witty repartee and sharp dialogue and witty relationships. I do have sympathy with people whose cup of tea it isn't, but it is my cup of tea, I think. Darren Morfitt, yes. Yeah. And this is, and again, you've got these guys on, that they're on the perimeter keeping an eye out, and the creatures are coming closer, and she's stuck. This is tense. This is atmospheric, and it's expanding the nature of the threat of the angels, which were a kind of one-trick pony, weren't they? In Blink, I was surprised we saw them again, and now they've become, one of the most. I don't like the way that the word iconic has infested our language and frequently incorrectly, but one of the most memorable, beloved in We Like to Be Scared by Them, and potent threats in the whole of Doctor Who history. And they were dreamt up for a sort of filler episode that the Doctor wasn't in, that has contrived to be one of Doctor Who's greatest episodes of all time. This is good because it does feel like they've got nowhere to go. They're really stuck, and they come up with solutions, and they can't. Yes. So timing. I think I think there's an element at the moment of, I mean, if I watch a drama now and they show a really exciting scene, and you go, oh, this looks a good drama, and then it goes 2 years earlier, and you go, if you don't catch up to the scene that you've just showed me in the first episode, I'm going to be really pissed off. And if you don't catch up with that scene until the end of the series, I mean, even episode 3, and you've lost me, because if you can't start your story at the beginning, if it hasn't got an exciting enough beginning, I don't want to watch a bit from near the end where I kind of know who's still alive and this, that, and the other, in order for you to entice me in and then think you're telling me the story in an interesting way. And I have to say, I sometimes, when I watch a Netflix or a something drama, and it'll end on a brilliant cliffhanger, and then the following episode it will start and go 3 years earlier, and I go, I don't want an episode where you basically get up to the point where I've just left it, and I'm sure you're doing something very clever and seeding something in or explaining something, but do you know what, just tell me a story with a beginning and a middle and an end. And I just think this, because there's quite a lot of it, and I do appreciate the skill that goes into it, and I think you have to have a very clever writer's mind of structure and cause and effect, and the way that character, you can do clever things with character interaction by not watching people's relationship in a linear way. But you know what, I'm a bit more of a meat and potatoes man, I think. Now I think Darren Morfitt was not originally Marco. I think Stephen Walters was originally Marco, and Darren Morfitt was one of the other ones. And the lines were sort of divvied up slightly differently. So a few of them got a bit more to do. I think that's right. In that they had to consolidate some of what these guys did. Now, Mark Monero, he's done loads. I've seen him and good array of things, because he was Steve in EastEnders for years. And he's done a few of those sort of Cockney gangster films, but I've also seen him I think I saw him at the Royal Court in Waris Hussein was seated behind me, and actually I think it was on the dawn. It was on the dawn of the Matt Smith era. So I remember there was something in the air, because I'd never met Waris Hussein at that point. So I said hello to him and explained and blah 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 blah. And of course it was Doctor Who starting tomorrow. Trevor Cooper was in that as well, and who I've since met. So yes, here the Doctor has his jacket on. So this is a Doctor from a different time, and I'm sure there are people that have all of these threads, but. And I'm sure if I was watching this without having to talk at the same time, I'd have a slightly better angle on it. But I'm going to have to react more to what's in the moment than the season-long timey-wimey, tie-uppy stuff, because I'm diving into these episodes randomly rather than as the series structure. So I make no apologies for that. And also, my mind doesn't work as well on. It's not as well engaged in that sort of thing as it is in everything, in rather than going, I like Ian Glenn's lovely stoical performance. And her pardon, that's right. So, and that's all great dynamic stuff. Is that, he's quite a fly in the ointment, isn't he, Octavian? But we like him. He's obviously an honourable man. But he doesn't really like either of our heroes, and that could be annoying, and it isn't, because I think because of the performance, and I think because of the way that he is written as Moffat is not a one-trick pony. He's not all snarks and sarks. I think Octavian is a really well-drawn, straightforward, honourable character. So yeah, Mark Monero was Steve in EastEnders. Darren Morfitt is. I keep forgetting the name of his character, who's brilliant in Dog Soldiers. And this is great. She has to. I'd love to tell you Darren Morfitt's coolest line in Dog Soldiers, but you'll have to watch it. It's good fun. she can't see and has to have them talking to her, is again a brilliant storytelling technique that takes a very simple thing. My main character can't see, so has to get her information from these guys who are watching what's going on. So they have to relay it. And of course, they have this brilliant thing of they relay it, and they keep forgetting the one that's disappeared. And she can't do anything about that. I mean, that is so economical. That is so imaginative. It's not using anything that you haven't got. It's using an actor. It's using character. It's using interaction, and a bit of light, which is great. But that terrifying concept of when one of them vanishes, they go, "What do you mean, Jim?" And she goes, "You were just talking to Jim." I know they're not called Jim; they're called Marco and Christian and things like that, aren't they? I think. I think. Oh no, and one is called Bob, not Philip and Crispin. That's right. There was a Bob, wasn't there? So yeah, one of those is a non-speaking actor, isn't he? But yeah, they've gone. And she'll go, "Oh, Philip and Crispin," and you go, "That's just such a simple. Oh my God, why can't they remember their mates?" And suddenly it becomes. I mean, it's already disconcerting because people are being gobbled up by the light, but that suddenly becomes really disconcerting and weird. And she can't do anything to help them, and they're not doing anything wrong. It's one of those really clever Moffat flourishes of taking seemingly straightforward ingredients and making it dramatic and scary and almost sort of primal fear about forgetting or being wiped from existence or whatever. And it's beautifully shot. It's absolutely beautifully shot. It is the crack in your wall. Which led well, let's not talk about what it led to. I love all this stuff. I think it's really exciting. I think it's really perplexing. I think it's really scary. No, don't go. What are the two? That's really. I think that's so simple. Crispin and who? I think that's so simple and so clever because something's up, and that the people protecting Amy can't protect her because she is obviously, without being able to see, is aware of something that they are not aware of. So they're obviously going to be a prey to a thing that she is sensitive to, that they, with the best will in the world, can't even conceive because... Who's Pedro? So Pedro's gone. So that's, and there's a horrible inevitability that, these guys are all going to be wiped out and she will be left on her own. And I fear this to me happens a little early because I really like Octavian, and there is quite a lot of the episode left to go. And I do, in my previous watches, I do feel that when the soldiers are gone, it kind of loses something. And I know, of course, it obviously needs to lose them. In order for it just to be our main characters left and to increase the danger, but I don't know. In the past when I've watched it, I've always felt it's slightly lost something when it loses Ian Glenn. But maybe that's just because I enjoy his performance so much, and I think it is an excellent performance, and I think he's a great character. He's very much my kind of Doctor Who character, who somebody sort of stoical and down to earth and straightforward and brave, and funny, but without being wacky. He's funny in his sort of in his intelligence of his discourse in a way. It's not jokey funny, I don't even know if he actually is funny, but I think he is. I think he's got a quick wit and turn of phrase. It's not, as I say, he's not a wacky character. And I love this. Don't trust her, planting the seed, and he's earned us. He's earned us this. He's unimpeachable. Really, he's obviously a man of honor at the point of death. You don't want to know. Oh, and this, again, and I really like this, very stoical, brave. I love a bit of, this isn't quite self-sacrifice, but I love a brave death. And I love this, I love this exchange. I wish I'd known you better. I think you saw me at my best. You knew me at my best. Or you see, I know it's just sort of, dramatic boy's own guff, if you like, but it's the sort of stuff that gets me. It's the sort of stuff of drama for me. And Matt Smith's brilliant. And horrible and brilliant. And the added weight to Octavian's death is, of course, that he's imparted something about the story arc. So it's not just the sacrifice within the story. But I love that scene. I'm thinking of the three things that I've got to choose. I think, I think I have to have the muzzle flash advance. I think I probably have to have Octavian's death. So that's two things. This is, I think the director here, Adam Smith, is it? Really emphasizes her loneliness in the way that this is shot, and Karen Gillan is excellent. But I think, I think her the fact that she is sort of marooned on her own with no protection anymore is really emphasized by the way that was shot, and that was shot in close up, and the music helps as well. What does he tell? I haven't seen this in such a long time that I can't remember how she gets out of it, and she does the sort of the blindness, the uncertainty, and all of this very, very well. It's amazing to think, she was the one who'd been the soothsayer lady, hadn't she, in Fires of Pompeii, and then she does this, and now she's a major Hollywood movie star. Doctor Who is now a passport to Hollywood in a way that I suspect, Jackie Lane and anyone, Ian Marter, Janet Fielding, Mark Strickson, found it, wasn't. And it's lovely that that our program is now taken very seriously within the industry, and attracts top talent. I mean, it always attracted good actors, but it didn't have that wider reach to, and that's the nature of television as well. I mean, television has completely changed, but the fact that it is at the forefront of what is popular culture now, an actor who's been a guest in one episode is known for Doctor Who. I mean, actually, if an old actor who was in Doctor Who once dies, they'll quite often say Doctor Who actor as well. The reporting of actors' careers in the press is usually fairly ineptly done. But if you think about what this is, it's essentially three actors, and an ominous looming threat, but all communicated through the anger of the Doctor, which Matt Smith does very well, and the interaction between him and River Song and Amy. We've got nothing else. This is because you think this story is full of angels, full of soldiers, full of action. We've got some angels now, but the past couple of minutes, that's just been basically interaction between those three characters, which I think is very smart and sort of deceptive. Now, I'm not sure I buy this. I think this is perhaps a change of the angel modus operandum. Modus operandi, no, we'll have modus operandi. That I'm not sure I buy. Don't blink, but if you look at them with your eyes shut, they'll think you can see them. I'm. This is a bit early to, I think, rewrite the rule book so fundamentally, because there's that brilliant scene in Blink where Larry is looking at the angel, and he, looks back, and he looks, and it's got closer to him. And you're telling me that actually all he had to do is close his eyes, but keep facing forward, and the angel would have gone, oh well, he's facing me, so he's looking at me. I alas don't buy that. Which, I mean, do I accept it because it actually facilitates a really memorable and really well done scene? Because this is really good and this is really spooky and scary. And do you go, well, much like, and that is great. That is great. And look at the crack and the broken nose of the angel. I think, that's, that is so spooky and scary. Because it facilitates an excellent scene in the same way that, because the rewriting of the Time Lords facilitated the brilliance of the Deadly Assassin. Do I go, well, I accept it because it allows for something that is a good piece of storytelling. I am sympathetic with that, because all drama is saying, look, come on, trust me, accept what I'm doing, go with it, and I'll give you a scene, an adventure, a character interaction, a plot twist or something that enriches and invigorates and entertains you. But it has to be bought on a level of plausibility and consistency. And one of the great strengths of Moffat's writing is that he creates worlds that have an inner logic to themselves. And I think Bob's voice is great, because there's an incongruity about it that could almost be comical, because he's got that sort of slightly flat, slightly hapless young man kind of accent, intonation, and voice, which is absolutely deliberate, because it's this weird juxtaposition of that and the ancient, scary female, grey statue alien things, and it's it's a dissonance that. Well, and Doctor, I think I've said this before. I may even have said it the last episode. Forgive me. There's been a gap between episode 1 and episode 2, and also I have a very throbbing shoulder. I've got an extremely painful frozen shoulder, so my brain is slightly blitzed. But the dissonance, is what Doctor Who is all about. Yeti on your loo and tooting Beck. The statues, the police box on an outer space tundra, or against some exotic background, a blue ramshackle box. This is all great. I love this piece of music. Really dramatic and reminiscent. It's a riff on the I Am the Doctor theme, isn't it, as well? I love the. It's funny because Murray Gold's done four series at this point, but I really love his the repeated refrain of I Am the Doctor in this season. I think it's an absolutely great theme. And here they are back on the beach. I say you're a time traveler now. That explains it. Yeah, and I think I buy that. I totally buy that. That she's it's like she's in the eye of the storm. He's got a bit of stubble there on him, Matt Smith. I never think of the Doctor having stubble much. This seems to me to have been filmed very early in the morning. I think they had an early call for this, and it was bitterly cold. That's just my guess from the sort of what you can see in the air. Very good. Very good. It is. I think I probably missed some of the plot mechanics and subtleties of the story they're talking through, which is always going to be a compromise, I'm afraid, when I do these commentaries, because and partially because these stories are sort of so dense and complicated. I'm not sure I like the you me handcuffs. I'm not sure I like all the sexy stuff. But that I'm completely aware that is a matter of taste. But I don't need sexual innuendo between the Doctor and another character. But that's just not to my taste. Whereas I love this. The Octavian said you killed a man, a good man. We know what this is driving at. She does this brilliantly. He's kind of facing her with it, and it's lovely because it's dropping a mystery, and you go, okay, I buy this. It's not dominated this two-parter. We've already heard about the Pandorica, but I casual viewer in inverted commas, I think this is all fine. And Doctor, that's a fairy tale, and this season has the feel of a fairy tale, which I rather like, and that's what I think Murray Gold's music invokes as well. Yeah, it's really bitterly cold. I bet he wishes he was wearing the jacket. I do think Alex Kingston's really good. She invests a lot of class into this, and she's good fun. Yeah. I think she's brilliant casting as River Song. Can't imagine anybody else doing it. And I love Matt Smith's Doctor. He's look at that face. He's got an absolutely brilliant face. What did Moffat call him? A bad drawing of a handsome man or something, which I think is superb. Time can be rewritten. Can it? Okay. Sometimes it can, sometimes it can't. That's a concept I struggle with, because you go, okay, why haven't you saved every person why didn't you save Phipps from the seeds of death? Why is it that you only, save Rory and Amy or whatever, and except for, when it's their exit story and you can't even just travel to see them by train or whatever. I think a lot of the timey-wimey stuff for me, I think, opens up. It stops it being as watertight, because it kind of cheats. It's not consistent within itself, and I do think a lot of it is a bit self-consciously, look how clever we're being, and you go, well, anyone could be clever. Anyone could be clever playing a game of cards that they've made up. Because I go to you, oh, well, look, I trump you with the ace of spades, and you go, no, you don't trump me this time round because it's round 3 and we were going backwards, and you can't trump me when I've got the 10 of diamonds. Why? Because that's the rules. Why? Because they're the rules that I've made up, that I'm always going to make up in favour of making sense to the way I want to play the game. And then you as a viewer, I think, are slightly less invested, because you go, well, if the rules work just because they're rules that you've invented, I have no stake in that as a viewer, because I can't anticipate. I can't think, oh yeah, I've cleverly worked that out because I'm not privy to your thought processes or your rules. That's, I think, my issue with the timey-wimey stuff, even though I do admire the cleverness and how some of the stuff that Moffat seeds in his very first episode has resonance later on. And I don't know if he entirely had that plan. This, on the other hand, I know he's got on record as saying that he kind of regretted that. And again, I can see what he's going for. She's just, she's just nearly died. She's just had a really, really terrifying adventure. And he's, but I don't think it does anybody any favors. Again, I'm not a great fan of the Doctor kissing anybody. It didn't come to the end of the world in the TV movie, fine. And I know he doesn't kiss her there, but it's still the companion kissing the Doctor. I don't like that at all. I'm sorry, her sort of suggestively lying back on the bed. One, she's going to marry Rory, and I feel a bit sorry for Rory. Two, I don't actually like the way she particularly plays this either. And it's kind. And as I say, he has since said that he regretted that, and what he was aiming for was, it was relief at still being alive, survivor's euphoria kind of thing. But I don't think it does anybody any favors. I don't think it's a great scene. So I've accentuated the positive by then. I really like this episode, by the way, Vampires of Venice. It's got some cracking lines in it. I love this piece of music. Love this bit. And Arthur Darvill is absolutely terrific. I think Rory is one of my favourite things of this season, which is another reason not wild about that scene between them, because it's a betrayal of him, and he's blameless. It's a great trailer. Why? See, can you imagine if you had this on DVD and it just cut into the closing credits? Anyway, let's not concentrate on the things I don't like, because this is accentuating the positive. And I really enjoy that episode, but it does contain some of the things I love the most about the Moffat era, but it also contains some of the things that just for me make it fall short, and frustratingly short on occasion, because I think his dialogue is great. I think his characterization is great. I think his casting is great. I think his ability to take apparently simple ingredients and give them the Doctor Who spin is great. But yeah, there are elements that just slightly jar it for me, and mean that I think in that season, the 11th hour, I still think remains the best, probably the best episode of that season. Well, Vincent and the Doctor is a strange anomaly. It's a sort of very unusual episode of Doctor Who. I do like the two-parter, the Pandora. It's a pretty strong later part of the season, but I still think. I think the 11th hour is one of the greatest introductions the show had. Go back and listen to my my Happy Times and Places on that with Nigel Neal biographer Andy Murray, because I think it's a great story and there's plenty to choose from. Anyway, I've got to choose 4 things that I like about that. 3 things plus a bonus thing. So, well, I like the machine gun, the aliens sort of element, of them retreating from the angels, and the machine gun, the lights that gives us the effect that the flashing light bulb had in Blink. So, and the sort of the way that he didn't go, well, I'll stick the angels in another haunted house tale. I'll stick those angels in a militaristic sort of story and see if they can work in a slightly different environment, and therefore not limit the range of their storytelling and the sort of styles of story we can tell with those. But that's that's around the house's way of going. I like the bit where the gunfire flashes and the creatures move forward. So that Octavian's death, just because I picked the fact that they were they were clerics before, and that was the one that Joe and I both picked together. And I think I may have included Ian Glenn in that. But if I didn't, this Octavian's death is a way of again acknowledging what I think is a very mature and straightforward and a very good, serious, sensible, dramatic performance of the type that Doctor Who needs to, give to ground the characters and the crazy situations around. You sometimes need an actor that's got that innate presence and that commitment to doing it wholeheartedly and unfussily and seriously, and who has that natural gravitas that you can't learn. You've either got it or you haven't, and Ian and Glenn has it big time, and I really love that performance, and I think he's a great character. And so I'll but as I say, as I think I might have included him last time, I'll throw him into his own death scene, and so we have all of that. I think we have to have I do like the the introduction of the idea that River has killed the Doctor. That's dangled as a tantalizing story arc that means that we know River is coming back, that means that these episodes have a promise of things that are ahead, and that that balance of having individual stories with threads that reward the regular viewer. And I think there are lots of threads in the Moffat stuff that works, even though I am timey-wimey averse, or timey-wimey reluctant. So, and partially because I think Alex Kingston is so good, but the way that they introduce that dynamic into this relationship. So we've met River Song first in Silence in the Library, Forest of the Dead, and she's this character with whom he's got this amazing relationship, and she dies. So then when he brings her back, which I didn't expect, I explained that all in the last episode. You go, okay, well, this is going to be weird. So obviously we're gonna learn the story of how he got to know this woman who obviously thought a hell of a lot of him and then dies. But because we know how that's going to end, it's got to be interesting in some other way. Because otherwise, every time they meet, it's just going to be, well, isn't this sad that she doesn't know that he already knows that she's dead? But adding that thread that, but now it's suggesting that she kills him. That's a thing. I think that's a clever way of giving what, as I say, I had not thought would be a continuous thread throughout the show. I thought the River Song story was done and dusted and told. Suddenly perked my interest up and made me go, okay, it's going to be slightly more interesting than he's occasionally going to meet her and be sad that he knows how she dies. And the fourth thing, the bonus thing, I think it has to be. I think it has to, which I've kind of alluded to it in the machine gunny bit. The taking of the angels and transforming them, I think, which is what this story does, from being a one episode monster into a monster that is more versatile than its initial conception led one to think that they might be. And I thought that was pretty bold and pretty imaginative and pretty clever. And I like the way that they've got, the ones that we have here, have bits of their noses missing and cracks on their face and all of that. I think that's again a nice sort of continuation of the aesthetic and the idea, and one that has a logical element to it. So there we go. Gunflash, Octavian's death, the introduction that River Song has killed the Doctor, and the the continuation of the angel myth and the development of them as a creature within the Doctor Who universe. I mean, honourable mentions go to, I could have mentioned the direction. I did mention the direction as we went on. I think the direction is very, very strong. Murray Gold's music is very, very strong too, and there are themes that I particularly like and think are particularly effective. Let's see what Joe does. So, Flesh and Stone number 1. And where is Joe for this? Because he sent me videos from different parts of he's recorded in different parts of where he lives. So here we are. Where's Joe?
My first favorite thing about Flesh and Stone is the direction by Adam Smith. He also directed The 11th Hour, it's my favorite Doctor Who story, and he does a fantastic job with this story. A couple of highlights are when the soldiers fight the angels going through the hallways, very reminiscent of the James Cameron's Aliens, one of my all-time favorite movies. Another thing I liked about the direction is Amy going through the forest, and when the angels turn their heads, a supremely creepy moment, and it was perfectly done by Adam Smith. So I talked a lot about the actors and the characters. This is where the production gets its thumbs up, because I thought Adam Smith did a fantastic job. I wish he would do more Doctor Who.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I get a bit of a point for that. One, because I mentioned Adam Smith, but not as one of my choices. But then, the Amy's move through the woods, I think, is extremely well done, and the angels turning. And I remember commenting on both those bits as they happened. But he mentions the muzzle flash alien sequence as part of that. So I think I get a little bit of a point of that for that. I hope. And Joe is there standing in front of a curtain, but he's got a lovely brown jacket on, but also a TARDIS tie. So that's what Joe looks at, because he's gone to the trouble of recording very varied visuals for his presentation, which I am now passing on to you in audio form only. Sorry, Joe. Right, number 2. Which I have to... Oh, it's on the cloud, don't you know? So actually all of this is on the cloud. So here we go. Flesh and Stone number 2.
The second favorite thing about Flesh and Stone is Karen Gillan's Amy Pond. Amy's my first companion, a big part of why I really love 11th Hour, and a fantastic performance in this story as well. Going through the forest with her eyes closed, surrounded by angels, was really scary, and you really bought into her fear. But she is a fantastic actress all through her run. Big fan of The Girl Who Waited. That's one of my all-time favorite 11th Doctor stories. Big Karen showcase. And just it's pretty cool watching her become this huge international star with these big blockbuster movies. But I saw her first, and most of us saw her first in Doctor Who.
Joe was there stroking a very lovely dog. He was sitting on a leather sofa and stroking a very lovely dog who seemed to be having a whale of a time. It's funny, when I loved Karen Gillan in that, and I think she's really good in it. And he mentions Girl Who Waited, in which I think she's absolutely extraordinary. But when I think of Amy Pond, I never think of her as being a particular favourite of mine. And I don't know why, because on the evidence of this, in the 11th Hour, which I did a while ago, and a few of the Matt Smith era ones that I've either watched bits of recently, she's absolutely excellent, and I think she's beautiful, but I think she's a good actress too. And I think Amy is an interesting character and has agency and gives things to do. So why is it that when I sort of think of Amy, I'm a bit sort of like, I'm not a massive fan of Amy. I don't know why. Is that what I was... I mean, and all things are relative. I don't dislike anything really about these periods of Doctor Who, but when I'm so it's all kind of relative. But I wouldn't choose Amy of the Modern Companions in my first thought as a favorite ever, and I don't know why. On the evidence of what I've seen recently, is it because of something that happens later? Is it because they stay for a while? Is it because I wasn't convinced by their ending? I don't know. I'm going to have to be conscious of that when I go through these episodes, and maybe, reframe my opinion, because she hasn't put a foot wrong. Well, I mean, she tripped over, but so far. So I wonder why in my subconscious I have a slight antipathy towards Amy Pond when the character and the actress have done nothing wrong in any of the episodes that I've viewed recently, including those. That is very interesting. And it is also fantastic that she's gone to have this Hollywood career, because at around this time, I think between these seasons, I went to see her to play at... where was it? The Royal Court, the Donmar, somewhere like that. Quite close to her on the stage. Douglas Hodge starred in it in Admissible Evidence, which is quite a long and difficult and strange 60s piece of sweaty monologue. Douglas Hodge was excellent, and he played it like he got a frog in the back of his throat. So the whole thing, he spent every every couple of pages you do and you could sort of hear the phlegm in the back of his throat, but it was obviously an acting choice, and it was horrible and uncomfortable, but also brilliant, wonderful piece of brilliant observed acting. And it's this huge, largely a monologue. None of the other characters do that much at all. Some of the characters have no lines whatsoever, and I think Karen Gillan only had about 8. Everyone is sort of on the periphery. So that was very interesting that she did that quite small stage part, because she hadn't actually done much theatre, and was, humble enough to go, well, I'll, work with a brilliant actor, brilliant set of actors, with some other good actors in it, Esther Hall, at an illustrious venue in a, revival of a play that, in the 60s was, quite something, even though it had, I think it has lost a bit of its potency and visibility in the ensuing years. It wasn't the easiest watch, I have to say. It was interesting, but it was largely for the virtuoso performance of Hodge, who's incredible. He's an actor that should have been in Doctor Who by now. But also, she was a friend of a friend, and she was, when she was in Doctor Who, that when I was living in London at the time with my now ex-wife Catherine, and Catherine went out with her friend Sarah and came back, and they'd met up with Karen Gillan. I don't think she was a close friend of this friend, but she'd said, yeah, I'll come out with you. And she was in Doctor Who at this time, and they took photos together, and there they were. So she still had her feet very, very firmly on the ground, and was hooking up with people she didn't know hugely well, and meeting new people, including my wife. It's always funny that Doctor Who has always entered my life from funny angles. A social night for my wife, when she was going out with a friend of hers, nothing to do with me, but happens to be meeting the person who's the current star of Doctor Who. Bizarre how Doctor Who is always is always around the corner for me somehow. Anyway, yes, I need to rethink my relationship with Amy Pond, because I don't know why I have a slight question mark. I think it's I do not like that scene at the end, I have to admit, but that's not enough to make a companion plummet in your estimation. So I need to consider that. I need to consider my relationship with Amy Pond, because Karen Gillan is great. Karen Gillan is excellent. Number 3, Flesh and Stone. Joe looks like he's outside a shed. Is there a bit of a tractor thing going on there? Definitely some corrugated iron and some fencing, a bit of barbed wire. What's he going to say to me now for his third thing?
I struggled a bit finding the third favorite thing about Flesh and Stone, simply because I had 2 really good choices. Either the writing of Stephen Moffat or the music of Murray Gold. And based on what I saw in Village of the Angels this weekend, I'm going with Stephen Moffat's writing. He is just such an amazing writer, showrunner. His creations, Weeping Angels, are an enduring Doctor Who monster. In my opinion, the best monster to come out of New Who, and such a good monster that another writer has managed to use them in such a way that made it really, in my opinion, the best episode
of the entire Chibnall era. So Stephen Moffat's great dialogue between the characters, between River and the Doctor, River and everybody, and just he's a great showrunner. I love his era to death. The 11th and 12th Doctor, just fantastic. So that's my third thing.
Yeah, no, it's and I'm in danger sometimes of taking the big things for granted. You know, would I ever do a Russell T Davies episode and go, well, obviously the best thing about this is Russell T Davies because he is so amazing, and and Moffat too is there are so many strengths that they have, and because they're showrunners, the most successful of their episodes are largely successful because of their vision and their high end skills, and the angels have become, I think are definitely the most successful creation of New Who monster wise. So can't argue with any of that, even though I sort of alluded to a lot of those ingredients and reasonings, I didn't. So no points for me. I've there's no way that I've won this. That's not a surprise. Joe deserves it for the effort that he's put into filming himself in different locations, and he's going to choose his bonus thing now. Let's see if there's a little honour for me to be had. He's standing in front of some lovely green hills and trees, and it looks quite sunny in the open air there. The country life. Good for Joe.
So here's my bonus thing. What else could it be but Matt Smith, the 11th Doctor? What's going to get me to dip my toes and try and tackle the 47-year history of a show like Doctor Who? It's going to be an amazing actor presenting an entirely different kind of hero than anything I've seen before. It definitely, Matt Smith is great. I love the whole Matt Smith era. There's not a story in that era that I'm not willing to sit down and watch anytime, anywhere. I think he's great. I think he's a great Doctor, and I think the show was just fantastic during that time period. Love his companions, and this was his first episode he filmed. He just knocked it out of the park. Love the Doctor.
Yeah, I should have chosen that really, especially as Joe reminded me there. That's this is his first block, isn't it? And he's already Doctor Who, and he's so good. He's so good at the emotional stuff. He's so good at the funny stuff. He's so good at the tricky sci-fi stuff, and he has a lightness of touch. He has an elan. He has an emotional core. He's got an age beyond his years, all of that stuff that I think is really important for a good Doctor, and he owns it from day one. And he's, he is reminiscent a little bit of Troughton, even though physically and facially totally different, and that's always a good thing in my book, to be reminiscent of Troughton. And I love the reverence that he has for the past show. I love the fact that he chose the bow tie based on watching Tomb of the Cybermen and liking what Troughton got up to, and going against that sort of sexy young piratey thing that they wanted for him, and actually being more so, even though he didn't really know the show, picking up that actually its DNA is perhaps more bookish than swashbuckling. I like that. And what I particularly love about that though is this was sort of Joe's entry point, and he's gone back and looked at Classic Who and the whole of Classic Who, and is enough of a fan to sign up to my old rubbish and engage with it so enthusiastically. And he's sort of my sort of age, Joe, and so he comes from a completely different place, a completely different perspective. Even that's aside from our cultural differences and influences and all that sort of thing. But the fact that he comes to the show from the other end of it, he's introduced via New Who and then goes back to Old Who, and yet we still have so many things that we sort of like and can discuss and all that. I love that. And in fact, that's a testament to timey-wimey, isn't it? That's a very Moffat-y way of him discovering the show. He started the show at one end. I started at not quite the other end, but another end of it at different time points, but those time points then cross over, but we experience it in a different order. Joe and I have experienced Doctor Who almost in a way that River Song and the Doctor have experienced each other. You know, we've had the same experiences, but in a totally different order. And because we've had them in a totally different order, perhaps our reactions to those things will be different. And so actually, maybe there is something in this timey-wimey thing after all. Ha ha! And Joe also has... Oh, no, so Shameless Plug is first. Shameless Plug is 10. He's numbered them. And this isn't timey-wimey. This is linear. So number 9 was the bonus. Number 10 is the Shameless Plug. So I'll play that for you now.
Shameless Plug. When I first started filming these videos almost 3 weeks ago, I didn't really have a plan for a plug. I don't have a blog. I don't have a podcast. I don't have a YouTube. I barely have a Twitter. You don't have to follow me on Twitter. But something has come up, something that's very important. My cousin Annie, the daughter of my cousin Gary, is a special education teacher, and she has been battling brain cancer for over 5 years. They've gotten some of the cancer out, but some of it still remains, and they're fighting to save her life. Her remarkable father, Gary Wilson, my cousin, has raised a lot of money with the GoFundMe, organized not that long ago, but every little bit helps, and this is the biggest audience I can come up with to spread the word. And if you could donate to Annie's cause, that would be most wonderful. I really appreciate that, and Toby for this opportunity to spread the word.
So if you could do that, that would be wonderful, and I will do a reminder and give you directions of how to get to the all-important donations page for that. Now, and send best wishes too. From me, and I hope from all of you. Right, outro from Joe.
Outro. So, Joe Lewallen, Doctor Who fan from Northern California. Thank you, Toby, for giving me this opportunity to talk about the 11th Doctor, one of my very, very favorite stories, Time of Angels, Flesh and Stone, my favorite era of the show. It's just a great story, one of the very best. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Thank you, Toby, for giving me this opportunity. I ask you to support Annie in her GoFundMe if you can, and support Toby with his Patreon, because he brings a lot of joy, at least to my little world, and hopefully to yours too. Thank you all, and God bless.
Thanks, Joe. And yes, if you can support Annie, that would be lovely. Again, I will send you to the page in the outro or in the post credits. Well, Joe brings me a lot of joy, as does, I didn't really know Doctor Who fans, certainly not growing up, certainly not till I was a teenager, really. And it's still always been largely a solitary pleasure. And I don't mind that. I'm actually quite good in my own company. But I do like the fact that this show has enabled me to sort of reach around the world and connect with lives, that I could not possibly have had any form of encounter with, really, were it not for being united, even though we've come to it in different ways and different experiences and all of that. It's just that's all it is, the program itself, not the program discovered at the same point or necessarily the same things about the program, but just this program, Doctor Who, this sprawling program that people like for different reasons, that has had many incarnations, that has had many different sets of atmospheres and creative regimes that have given it different aesthetics and tones and styles of storytelling, all that sort of thing. But there's something about it that means that two people who've never met can enjoy each other's company and each other's experiences of the show, and and there are people like that across the world, but also in the UK, and people that I will meet at some point, people that I may never meet at some point. But in this modern world, communication is doable and different, isn't it? But I'm really enjoying this aspect of it. I think it was exacerbated by lockdown as well, where we were all locked in and had to sort of think about reaching out and realise that actually our reach could be anywhere we wanted it to be. But I'm really thrilled by that, and the whole Patreon was set up during lockdown as part of that whole process, and it was something I was very reluctant to do. I don't like busking and putting my cap down, but also I am a freelance creative, and you have to monetize your speech. Essentially, it's what and your broadcasting and your endeavor and your creativity, and I hope there's some of at least bits of those in this. But actually, the most important thing about it is that, well, one, I'm extremely flabbergasted anybody has done it, and it's been a pleasant surprise that people who have done it have stuck with it and seem to find something worthwhile out of it. But it's to turn it away from myself slightly, it's that it's opened me up to exchanges with people of the quality of Joe, which I think is extraordinary and fascinating to me, that such interesting and fascinating and nice and with a benevolent worldview and a joy of creativity, could somehow connect with me and the stuff that I do. I find that flattering and beneficial and wonderful, and just another great thing about the brilliance of Doctor Who. And Joe also has number 12, a silly bit at the end. He says, "What is this?" Oh, he's outside some trees that have what look like some sort of neon lights wrapped around them.
And truly, finally, I just want to thank my long-suffering children who filmed all of these. My son TJ.
Hello.
And my daughter Gracie.
Hi.
And they did all this. And remember, whatever holds an image of an angel becomes an angel. Don't blink. Blink and you're dead.
So scary.
That was brilliant, and there was an angel figure there. One of the ones with the oversized heads, not the character options ones, but those slightly sort of caricatured ones. What was pointed to the camera. So I now have the image of an angel, and I'm now going to get something in my eye, and something terrible is going to happen to me. And it was nice to see TJ and Grace's hand only waving there. But isn't that great that the kids got involved as well, which again is another example of why Doctor Who is so wonderful, is that it's connected Joe with his kids. Poor kids have been co-opted into making those 12 videos that he did with such enthusiasm and creativity to be part of this project, and and the effort involved, I do appreciate it, especially as I'm doing this currently, as an audio presentation, and there's very much mothballs on the video element of these podcasts, just because I'm writing a book about Quatermass and trying to keep a roof above my head in the world of comedy and entertainment, and doing all the other things that I do, as well as living with and being a partial carer for a disabled partner, and just the fugitive tempest that seems to mean that I don't have as much time to do things as I did when we were locked down and couldn't go anywhere. So apologies to Joe that the videos currently don't have a home, but I hope enough of his character and input comes across in the audio medium. But he did put great effort into that, and as I say, co-opted his children, who seem to have done it with great enthusiasm. And of course, that's where the hope lies, the next generation, if they're still loving telly that is an imaginative and gripping and scary. And of course, they're kids from the United States who, if they're enthusiastic and inspired, and perhaps have an element of that helps, that bonds them with their dad. I certainly found Doctor Who was a useful tool with my kids, and it's great to have a thing that I love, that my kids sort of enjoyed when I watched it with them, and blah blah blah. What a wonderful, excellent extra element that is to what the show brings to the table, is that it crosses generations and it helps generations to bond. And I think again, it's particularly impressive if it reaches across the pond and does that as well. It provides the same, there's the same sort of familial glue that I associate with, cold winter nights in Shropshire and boiled eggs and soldiers and all of that sort of thing. But it didn't actually bond me with my family and parents. It was more a sole island of respite. Whereas there, it's a dad and his kids doing a fun thing. Well, I hope it was fun, TJ and Gracie, and bunging it over to me over here in the UK. I love the whole story of that, and again, that is something that has been inspired by silly old Doctor Who. So yes, I completely lost that. Although I have to say, I think I touched upon all of the things that Joe chose, and it's a reminder that sometimes one mustn't overcomplicate this. And if the actor playing the Doctor, particularly if it's their first kind of shot at it, is really good, choose them. If the writing is really good, choose the writer, even if it's the showrunner. If the direction is good, choose the director, and don't just do that if it's the classic series where you pride yourself that you can spot different directors, stylings. I think you do have to look a bit harder in the new series to pick out good bits of direction, because the new series is a bit more uniform. There is a sort of house style. Television series now have a house style in the way that actually in the old days a director could come and stamp their mark on it. They could shoot the particular series they descended upon in a way that differed from the people who shot it last time. I think there was much more leeway actually to stamp your mark as a director in the way that television used to be made than now. But Adam Smith did an amazing job there, and I think the great assets that he brought are much more subtly deployed. You don't directors' input on Doctor Who today it's much less about grand statements, but more about very subtle and clever bits of editing and pacing, and all within the established style and the way that stuff has to be shot with a certain consistency these days to make a program recognizable, etc., etc. So so I do regret not choosing the summer. I very much went for sort of scenes and moments, didn't I? Whereas I tend to go for people. So so I always tend not to go for people when the guest goes for people. You can't win. No, I can't win. But as this is a Stephen Moffat story, what I can do is I can travel back in time and go back to the beginning and choose all the things that I now know Joe's going to choose. Oh, but would that be cheating? Yes, it would. And I did touch upon that. No, so instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to, as a result of my relief at getting through this alive, I'm going to inadvisedly get off with somebody I've just caught a lift with, and end the episode on a slightly controversial note. Anyway, kissy kissy kiss. Good. Thanks to Joe mostly though, and I will direct you to Annie's donation page. What a great cause that could hopefully come out of you listening to this. Thanks for listening to this. Thanks to Joe, and I will see you the next time we set sail for some happy times and places. Thanks very much for listening to Happy Times and Places, which is presented by me, Toby Haydock, and my special guest, Joe Lewallen. Very sweetly says, don't follow him on Twitter, but instead go to GoFundMe, Help Annie with Medical Costs, which has been set up by Gary Wilson. So that information should get you there, and make a donation if you possibly can. I'm grateful to Joe and to the patrons who make these podcasts possible, and they include Ruben Herfindahl, Stephen Moffat, DWFan91, Simon King, Scott Burdett, Olivia Hayden, David Nichol, Garth Maker, Lee Coburn, William Lee, Ian Bradley, Damien McGee, Noel Reed Jr., William Remmers, Nigel Sharp, Mel Jones, the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Taran Woodbeasts, Richard Harris, Jasper Ferguson, Paul Gibbons, Paul Sarmer, James Silk, Julian Botting, Michael Harvey, Ashley Knight, Susie Ferguson, Carl Matfoy, and Alan W. Wright. The music is by Dave Gates, the artwork by Dylan Patterson. If you would like your name read out on the credits, well, that is one of the bonuses of being a patron. You can become one of those by going to patreon.com/Toby Haydoke, where for as little as £3 a month, you get advance releases, bonus releases, behind-the-scenes material, interviews from my archive, and every podcast is released in advance, in some cases up to 6 months. So you get stuff quicker and you get more access and you get more frequent releases. £3 a month, the tiers go up, but you get everything at the lowest tier. If you don't want to be tied into a monthly subscription, you can go to ko-fi.com/Toby Haydoke and make a donation whenever you like, which helps to go towards the costs of producing these and to keep me solvent as I witter away. It's a way of supporting independent artists, which is apparently what I'm allowed to classify myself as, even though it sounds god-awful. You can like and subscribe these any way you get them. That really helps, and it costs you nothing. Like, a thumbs up, a subscription, a retweet, anything that polishes the algorithms and brings attention to these is really helpful, because one doesn't want to be screaming into the void. Well, not all the time. I'm on Twitter, at Haydoke Podcasts and at Toby Haydoke. I'm also on Blue Sky. I straddle the political divide because I'm very needy. And I'm also on Instagram at toby.haydoke, and I've got a Facebook page, and I've got a YouTube channel if you could like and subscribe to that, and maybe click on the video versions of these podcasts, because I was told to put them on because you should have them on every platform imaginable, and because most people listen to them as a podcast, which is they're designed to be, their viewing figures are, shall we say then, that they don't make me look particularly good. But apparently it's better to, and they've split into two. For some reason, the same one gets released twice, and I don't know why. But I don't want to delete one of them because they both get about the equal amount of viewers. So if I was to delete one, I would be... Anyway, it doesn't matter. Just do the YouTube thing. Thank you. I shouldn't really give you the peek behind the curtain about neediness, should I? Anyway, I wonder what... I never check, you see. I wonder what the original post-credits... Quite often, you see, I think I sometimes use the post-credits to account for something or to clear something up or to build on a thought that was in the original pod recording that I've then thought about, and to add a bit of context. And so I might have erased that, because I always do something new for these omnibuses, for something entirely pointless that's not related to this at all, because of course I've not listened to it again. I will never listen to this again. That's, I expect you to, but I'm not gonna. So there could have been something really useful that pointed out either a mistake or some sort of clarification about these two episodes, and instead it's me wittering on about a year later, going, hello. There we go. So anyway, there we go. Hello.